received a non-adverse report from the Parliamentary Legal Committee on statutory instrument numbers 69, 70, 71, 72, 74, 75, 76, 78, 79, 80, and 81, published in the Gazette during the month of April. I wish to recognize the presence in the Speaker's Gallery of members from the Institute of Young Women Development, General Agriculture and Plantation Workers Union, Gender and Media Connect, and Women Coalition of Zimbabwe. You are most welcome. Are there any notices of motion? Notice of presentation of bill. The Honorable Minister of Justice and Legal Parliamentary Affairs. Is this correct? Clerk? Minister of Justice, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to present a bill to provide for a framework within which public interest disclosure of conduct adverse to public interest in the public and private sectors shall be dealt with, to protect whistleblowers, to establish a witness protection unit within the National Prosecution Authority, to provide for a program for the protection of witnesses, to establish a witness protection appeal tribunal, and to provide for matters incidental to or connected with the foregoing Whistleblowers and Witness Protection Bill HB4 of 2026. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The clerk will read the bill for the first time.
Whistleblowers and Witness Protection Bill HB4 2026.
The bill is referred to the Parliamentary Legal Committee. Notice of presentation of a bill, Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion. The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Item number 2 of the order paper.
Protection Corporation Act, Chapter 2429, and to provide for matters connected with or incidental to the foregoing, Deposit Protection Corporation Amendment Bill, HB 2, 2026. I
Thank
so
you.
submit. Thank you.
The clerk will read the bill for the first time.
Deposit Protection Operation Amendment Bill HB 2 2026.
Thank you. The bill is referred to the Parliamentary Legal Committee. The clerk will read first order of the day.
Urgent debated motion on the second reading of the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Bill number 3 HB 3 2026.
When this debate was adjourned on the 5th June 2026, the question before the House was a motion by the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs that the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 Bill HB 1 2026 be now read a second time. Is there any further debate? I've got a list here. The first honorable member to take the floor is Honorable J. Chokururama.
Maita henyu mubati wechigaro nokundipa mukana uno kuti ndisvitsewo manzwi mukati meimba ino senyaya yakapinzwa muno negurukota redu rinoona nezvekugadzirwa nokunanzverera kwemutemo. Ndakamira pano ndakamirira chirumhanzvu Zimbabwe nemapepa avo avakauya kuzotsveta kuno kudare guru reparamende vachitsigira kebhu namba 3 zvine mutsindo. Tofunga vakauyisa mapepa anoita 12,378 kuratidza ivo kuti vanotsigira zvakawiswa muimba ino, vanotsigira zvakafamba komiti ichitenderera ichida kunzwa manzwi evanhu nemuono wavo. Zvinoratidza kuti chirumhanzu nenyika yese vari kufamba pamwe chete. Inivo ndotsigira zvakanyanya bhiri nezvikonzero zvinoti nyika ino pairi nhasi inoda kushandirwa, haidi kubudisa mari zvakanyanya tichimanya nenyaya dzemaelections. Makore maviri akawedzerwa kusvika pamakore manomwe okuvhoterwa kwemutungamiriri wenyika nemakanzera nema-MP. Zvakakosha, zvinopa vanhu mukana, zvopazve mutungamiriri anenge asarudzwa nevanhu kuti ashande asingamanyi, nokuti makore 5 mashoma pakushanda kwemunhu kana achinge avhoterwa. Pangava pamba chaipo chivaka imba yako, haugoni kuivaka nemwedzi 2 ikapera. Ndosaka muchiona dzimwe dzimba dzakamira dzisina kurufiwa, inyaya yekuti panenge pasina kuplaniwa zvakakwana. Saka nyika ino yeZimbabwe inoda nguva, sezvo mutungamiriri asarudziwa, anodawo nguva yokushanda nokujairirana nevanenge achishanda navo. Ende nguva zhinji tichibuda mumaelections inguva yokumarana kwevanhu. Zvinova zvaonekwa nenyika yeZimbabwe nezvizvarwa zveZimbabwe kuti bodo kumarana kunonyanya nenguva yemaelections. Ende nyika inogadzirira mari ipapo pamakore 5 potodiwa imwe mari yokundoita maelections. Makore 5 achipera podiwa imwe mari. Paitoda kuti deni aitiwa chero makore 10 kuitira kuti vawane nguva yokushanda. Zvinhu izvezvo zvinoita kuti munyika medu muve nerunyararo. Tikaramba tichingomanya zvoita sokuti tisi tatanga kuita izvi podo. Tikatarisa South Africa neBotswana dzinova dzimwe nyika dzatakavakidzana nadzo, ndo zvavanongoitawo kuti kana mutungamiriri avhoterwa anozovhoterwa kuno kuparliament nokuda kwevanhu vanenge vavhoterwa nevanhu vazhinji. MP akauya kuno apuhwa simba rokuzosarudza mutungamiriri wenyika ava muno muimba ino yeparamende inova ndodare guru renyika ino yeZimbabwe. saka naizvezvo ndinotsigira cable 3 zvine simba chaizvo kuti nyika ino vana vezimbabwe vaona zvakakodzera kuti dare repariamendi risarudze purezidendi wenyika imo muno, nokuti ndo vakatipa simba rokuuya kuno kuti tizovamiririra. Zvimwe zvacho zvinokonzera izvezvo ndozvokuti misindo nenyonganyonga inoita mishoma kana tikange tazviitira tiri kuno. Mukatarisa kumashure kwese uko dzaiva hondo, kutukana, mapopoto nevawaidha navo mundiro mune musati muchataudzana nenyaya yemaelections. Saka nguva yapiwa nemakore maviri awedzerwa akanaka chaizvo, dene zvaramba zvakadaro, nokuti Mwari chaiwo kudenga ndiye aona kuti nyika ino inofanira kuva norunyararo. Panguva yatinoita maelections tinotukana zvisingabviri. Mukutukana ipapo mari yenyika inenge ichibuda. Kana mari ikatorwa yenda kundogadzira zvimwe zvoda kugadzirwa sezvatiri kuona kuri kugadzirwa marodzi, zvipatara zviri kumutsiridziwa, chese chinodiwa munyika chinoitiwa nemari. Pakuti timoti pasure pemakore mashanu tatora mari taindisa, mari iyoyo yotorwa yovaka zvipatara, mari iyoyo yotorwa yovaka zvikoro, zvinoita kuti nyika yese nevagari vanowana upenyu hwakanaka. Mubati wechigaro, ndinoda kutenda chaizvo nekuda kwevanhu veZimbabwe vakatipa simba rokuti tive tizotaura nyaya iyi muno. Ini ndinotsigira zvine mutsindo nemashoko ewawo nemukana wamandipa, ndatenda.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next Honorable Member to take the floor is Honorable Chinoda Gufa. Honorable Chinoda Gufa.
Maichabasa mubati wechigaro. Ndinonzwa kufara kana ndichitaura mune imba ino kuti pandasimuka pano ndasumuka kuti nditsigire zvizere Cape 3. Mubati wechigaro, kana ndakatarisa kumashure kwandabva kuShamba North constituency, vanhu veko vakasarudza kuti Cape 3 vaitozana vachitoti mashoko awaiti Cape 3 bozve, kuti ndo matauro avaita iwayo. Saka ndiri kutonzwa kufara kuti iko zvino tauya nenyaya yakanaka. Regai nditsanangure mubati wechigaro kuti nyaya yeterm extension, kuwedzerwa kwemakore atinawo panyaya yetemu yedu, ndiri kuitsigira nezvikonzero. Tinowana mukana wekuvaka nyika yedu, tinowana mukana wekushandira nyika yedu. Zvaitirwa badzi kuti even vachazoteera kumashure vanowana mukana wekuzoshandira nyika yavo chinda mberi. Hazvina kuitirwa vanhu varimo muno chete muparliament. Ndotaura zvakare nyaya dzekuti president vanofanira kusarudzwa muno muparliament. Ndo nyaya chokwadi iyoyo, kuti vanhu vari kumusha vakanditaurira kuShamba kuti aiwa, hatichawana dambudziko kana tasarudza iwe MP chienda unobatana nevamwe vako ikoko, mutisarudzire president, basa ratirerukira, maseva machengetedza nguva, machengetedza mari yenyika. Ndotaura nyaya iyi mubati wechigaro. Kazhinji maonero andinozviita ini, chero vari muno vese hapana munhu angarambe nyaya yeCape 3, nekuti dai muda kunyatsoona kuti zvinofamba sei. Nyaya yandoisa pachena ndeyekuti imo muno chaimo, kana munhu angairamba Cape 3, tikatomuona kana tapedza kupasisa Cape 3 kuti anoramba inoda achara chigaro chake.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker. Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Mubati wechigaro, regai ndipfuurire mberi. Ndine nyaya ndingade kutaura nyaya yekuti voters roll inofamba sei. Okay.
Honorable Chigumbu, which is the rule of procedure that has been breached by the Honorable Member?
I think he's not saying the truth on behalf of us. I'm one of those people who debated against the bill. For him to say everyone in this house is for the bill is a misrepresentation of fact.
I'm not sure whether the Honorable Member said everyone. I thought he said everyone who supports the bill. Honorable Member, please continue.
Mubati wechigaro. regai ndipfuurire mberi. Ndinoda kutsanangura nyaya yekuti voters law dai ragona kuenda kwaregistrar ndiko kunoita kuti vanoziva vane marecords ekuti munhu aberekwa munhu afa. Saka zvakakonzera kuti rigare ikoko. Ndo koroshanda vezeki vombumira kushandisa nyaya dzevoters law. Ndopedzisa pano mubato wechigaro ndichiti madzimambo ngavawane mukana wekupinda mune zvematongero enyika. Sei ndichidaro? Ndinoda kupa muenzaniso uri muno muimba muno. Handichataura imi mubato wechigaro. Rega ndingoenda kuna vatogarepi. Vatogarepi, honorable togarepi, takavanga tinawo muno ndichifu wepu wedu. Asi takabva muno vanoenda kumusha mukonsiensi yavo vanenge vari MP weko. Vabva ipapo vakaenda kumusangano weZANU-PF, imember yeZANU-PF. Asi kana vaenda kumba kwavo vanonzi baba vauya. Hazvishamise kuti mambo vanogona kusiya bhatya ravo vachipinda mune zvematongero enyika. Kana vaende kudare vanoita zvekudare ikoko. Nemazuva andataura iwaya mubati wechigaro, regai nditaure ndichiti ndiri kutsigira zvizere nyaya yeCAB 3. Ndinoite ndakaende mberi mazviita zvenyu.
Tatenda. The next honorable member to take the floor is Honorable Gumbo, A. Gumbo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, to oppose Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. Mr. Speaker, sir, I do so not out of partisan obligation, not out of political convenience or political expedience, and certainly not out of hostility, Mr. Speaker, sir, to constitutional reform. I do so, Honorable Speaker, because this bill strikes at the very core of our constitutional democracy. At the outset, Mr. Speaker, let me debunk a notion that we have heard being advanced by the proponents of this bill. A notion that the opposers of the bill suggest that constitutional reform is a nullity or constitutional reform must not happen in modern democracies. That is not the point we wish to make, Mr. Speaker, before this House today. Constitutional reform, Mr. Speaker, by its very nature must be progressive. Constitutions can and must indeed be amended in order to suit the aspiration of the modern community and modern society. So the question is not whether or not constitutions must be amended. Honorable Speaker said the question is what sort of amendments must be entertained in a modern democracy. The Constitution of Zimbabwe, Mr. Speaker, says, as it currently stands, is not an ordinary statute. It is not a party manifesto. It is not a government program. It is the supreme covenant between the people and those entrusted with the exercise of political power. The Constitution, Mr. Speaker, says, exists for one fundamental purpose: to limit power, to distribute power, and to make power accountable to the people. Honorable Speaker, the Constitution of 2013 was not handed to Zimbabweans by politicians. It emerged from struggle. It emerged from sacrifice. It emerged from decades of demand for accountable government, democratic participation, constitutional restraint, and the protection of fundamental rights. The story of constitutional reform in Zimbabwe is written in the resistance against one-party state ambitions. It is written in the struggle for labor rights. It is written in the struggle for democratic renewal. It is written in the constitutional reform movement that culminated in the 2013 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, the framers of the Constitution understood a simple but profound truth. Democracy is strongest when power is limited, accountable, and periodically renewed. Speaker, Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 proposes fundamental changes to the architecture of our democracy. It extends the term of office of the president from 5 years to 7 years. It extends the life of parliament from 5 years to 7 years. It postpones elections accordingly. It removes the direct election of the president by the people and bestows that power in parliament. It restructures electoral administration. It expands executive influence within institutions of governance, and it weakens or abolishes constitutional oversight institutions. Taken individually, Mr. Speaker said, these clauses may appear technical, but taken together, they reveal a pattern. What pattern is that? It is a pattern of centralization, a pattern of concentration, a pattern of reducing the frequency with which political power must account to the people. Honorable Speaker said democracy is not merely about elections. Democracy is about accountability. And accountability requires regular opportunities for citizens to review those that they put in power. That is why term limits matter. That is why election cycles matter. That is why constitutional safeguards matter, Mr. Speaker. The memorandum accompanying this bill advances a number of justifications. We are told, Mr. Speaker, that the amendments are there and are necessary to promote stability, continuity, institutional efficiency, political inclusivity, and long-term development. This is what we are told. Attractive, Mr. Speaker, as these words and promises might sound, constitutional democracies must always interrogate not merely the language of reform, but the consequences of reform. History, Mr. Speaker, teaches us that constitutional changes aimed at extending tenure are almost never presented as projects for consolidation. They are almost always presented as projects of stability, continuity, and development, as we are told in the memorandum to this bill. Mr. Speaker said, the question that is before this House is therefore not whether development is desirable. The question that is before this House is whether development requires the weakening of institutions of democracy. The evidence from constitutional scholarship, and I speak as a constitutional law expert, Mr. Speaker, across Africa, countries that have respected constitutional term limits have generally built stronger democratic institutions than countries that have weakened or removed them. Research on presidential term limits in Africa demonstrates that constitutional succession contributes significantly to democratic consolidation and institutional development. Mr. Speaker, the African Center for Strategic Studies has observed, Mr. Speaker, that countries that weaken or circumvent constitutional term limits tend to experience higher levels of corruption, weaker accountability systems, and increased governance challenges. Honorable Speaker, constitutional development across Africa teaches us one fundamental lesson. Strong nations are built by strong institutions, not by extended incumbencies. The framers of modern constitutions understood one thing, that executive...
Point of order. Point of order.
Yes, Honorable.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I just want to correct the honorable member. He says here countries...
Order.
Yes, sir.
I can't recognize. What's your name again?
Honorable Muringazua.
Honorable?
Muringazua.
Ngazua, yes.
Yes, sir. It's a point of order. My point of order is the honorable member here.
Can you listen?
The honorable member here has made a fallacy here. He says countries that have extended terms have actually gone down, according to, I don't know what language is used here, but that was the implication. But when you look at Rwanda, Rwanda did the same thing, and today Rwanda is one of the most developed nations in Africa as we speak. I assist.
Thank you. Order. Yes, we must be careful of generalizing. Like in Africa, the template is not the same in the whole of Africa in terms of term limits. So if we may say some countries in Africa.
Indebted, Mr. Speaker said, I do understand that scholarly debate is difficult for some members. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Speaker, the
Honorable
Minister of
member,
Justice.
That's an insinuation which is negative in terms of honorable debate.
I withdraw, Mr. Speaker, for purposes of
I
continuity.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, sir, the allegation around the African context is not plugged from thin air. It derives from scholarly research by the Africa Center for Strategic Studies. If anyone has an opposition to that assertion or study, they must present a counter study and convince this House why this bill is good. Honorable Speaker, constitutional development across Africa has told us that leadership renewal in many democracies occur not because incumbents voluntarily surrender power, but because constitutional safeguards require them to do so. This is precisely why term limits exist. Not because leaders are necessarily bad, not because continuity is undesirable, but because democracy assumes that no individual, however capable they are, should become indispensable to constitutional order. Mr. Speaker, sir, what are we told? We are told that Vision 2030 requires continuity. I respectfully submit, Mr. Speaker, sir, that if national visions depend upon the continuity of particular office holders, then what we have is not institutional development, but personalized development. Mr. Speaker, sir, I submit with respect that a national vision should belong to the nation. It should survive presidents. It should survive parliaments. It should survive changes in governance. It should survive, Honorable Speaker, sir, any partisan interests. A bit of comparative constitutional debate. Botswana's development, Mr. Speaker, said, did not depend on one president. Ghana's democratic consolidation did not depend on one president. Mauritius' economic success, Honorable Speaker said, did not depend on one president, and the Speaker is well-traveled, knows these issues. Their progress was sustained by institutions capable of carrying national programs across successive administrations. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Constitution should strengthen institutions so that national development survives leadership change. It should not alter constitutional safeguards so that leadership survives beyond ordinarily set term limits. Honorable Speaker, there is another dangerous proposition embedded in the rationale advanced for this bill. The suggestion that democracy and development exist in tension, and that constitutional limitations may be relaxed in pursuit of developmental objectives. Mr. Speaker, sir, with respect, that is a farce. It's false, it's wrong. It's a false dichotomy. Zimbabwe does not have to choose between democracy and development. Zimbabweans deserve both, Mr. Speaker said. Development without accountability is fragile. Development without constitutional restraint is unsustainable. Development without legitimacy ultimately undermines itself. Mr. Speaker said, the Constitution is not an obstacle to national progress. The Constitution is one of the preconditions for national progress. The Constitution, Mr. Speaker, is the people's last line of defense. Honorable Speaker, I am particularly troubled as I take this plane to land. I am particularly troubled by the provisions relating to Section 328, subsection 7. The framers of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, deliberately inserted safeguards preventing incumbents from benefiting from amendments that extend tenure. They understood the temptation that power presents. They understood that those that possess authority often seek to extend it, as we see today. Section 328, subsection 7, Mr. Speaker, was therefore designed to ensure constitutional neutrality. That is what is threatened today, Mr. Speaker. It was designed to ensure that constitutional amendments do not become an instrument for self-extension. Yet this bill seeks to provide that the very incumbents who are presently in office, the president, parliament, councils, they may benefit from the extension of tenure. We must cringe, Mr. Speaker, as a nation by such suggestions. We must ask ourselves honestly, if constitutional safeguards can simply be overridden whenever it becomes convenient, what purpose do they then serve? What then remains of constitutional restraints? What then remains of constitutional supremacy, Mr. Speaker? Honorable Speaker, I also oppose the proposal to remove direct election of the president. This is because one of the most profound changes by this bill. In a constitutional republic, sovereignty belongs to the people. The president derives legitimacy directly from the citizens. The people are not spectators in democracy. They are a source of authority. The right to choose the head of state directly is not a procedural detail, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear. It is a democratic principle. The people should elect the president. Parliament should not replace the people as the source of presidential legitimacy. If there are deficiencies, Mr. Speaker said, regarding electoral administration, we must strengthen electoral administration. But we do not resolve challenges by removing citizens from the center of democratic process. Honorable Speaker, I am equally concerned by provisions which weaken the independence of electoral administration in this country. We created, by national consensus, an independent institution for the running of elections. Why? Because, Mr. Speaker said, we were coming from a history and a vicious cycle of disputed elections in this country. We decided as a nation, let us allow an independent player, let us allow an independent institution to run the way power is exchanged and the way power is renewed in this country. We seek to go back, Mr. Speaker, to the very ills that was cured by the creation of an independent commission. Mr. Speaker said, we stand here not because we are so happy with the commission's work in the past, but Mr. Speaker said, our cause of contention is the manner in which the independent institution has been capacitated to run elections, is the manner in which there's been undue interference with the running of elections. Mr. Speaker, the suggestion to have the Registrar General run the voters' roll and safekeep the voters' roll and register voters, put the executive back into electoral processes, one thing which we fought against by coming up with the 2013 Constitution. The solution, Mr. Speaker, to institutional challenges is not to weaken.
Honorable member, you have 1 extra minute, please.
Mr. Speaker, we will adhere to the one minute. Historically, Mr. Speaker, the challenges that we have faced as a nation, in as far as elections are concerned, have been embedded in the overreach of the executive in the function, because when we talk of an election, we go pre-election, during election process, and the post-electoral process. All these functions are anchored in the judgment of a free, fair, and credible election. Mr. Speaker, we must not be retrogressive in our proposal for amendments. I note, Mr. Speaker, that there is also a proposal to amend the function and role of the military in constitutional democracies and constitutional defense. Mr. Speaker, I must remind that the government of the day is a direct beneficiary of the clause that gives power to the military to uphold the Constitution. We must not forget that. Now, we see attempts at coup-proofing. We see attempts at limiting the role of the military to being probably anamahobo, Mr. Speaker say. We are opposed to that amendment. We believe that the Constitution of this country must be upheld. And whenever there is executive overreach or attempt by the executive to interrupt the very structure and architect of our Constitution, power must be given to those that they can protect the citizens, Mr. Speaker say. That is protecting the sovereignty of this country. That is protecting the integrity of constitutionalism in this country, Mr. Speaker say. I know your time is up, and I submit.
Thank you. Thank you. The next order. Tezwangu. The next honorable member to take the floor is Honorable S. Sabupanya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, to know where we are going is to know where we have come from. Our well-documented history speaks to the triumphant victories earned through a clear vision of a prosperous Zimbabwe. To achieve this, our first objective of independence was attained in 1980. Our second objective of unity was attained in 1987. The land reform phase addressed ownership objective so that this country is not only ours in name, but in real terms. And now we find ourselves going through the economic empowerment phase, ably led by our President, Comrade Dr. E.D. Nagabe. Mr. Speaker, focus on economic development should not only be by word of mouth. Action must show in all areas of government. We must be intentional about economic empowerment over political expediency. This, the President has been leading the way, spelling out the 2030 economic agenda, which has since become a household anthem. This bill, Mr. Speaker, presents an opportunity for Parliament to push forward systems that allow us as a nation to strengthen the resolve that we must be an economic powerhouse. And as such, being the youth representative for Manicaland Province, I fully support Constitutional Amendment Bill No. 3. In the spirit of economic prosperity, I will share my viewpoints as to why I support this bill. To illustrate the ideological shift, I take into consideration Clause 3, which speaks to the election of the President by Parliament. The direct implication of this clause means the contentious presidential vote which has been the main cause for post-economic election stagnation, is done away with. Elections have historically been accompanied with economic stagnation and speculation. Businesses not only wait for results, but also react to the particular presidential vote, which means the country cannot truly move forward until all sides have accepted results as they are, something that some of us still grapple with to this day. This provision, Mr. Speaker, removes the potential prospect also of a runoff, which means by historical recordings, breeds violence, uncertainties, and means government spending on unending elections. We have had one runoff in 2008, and I believe we are better off as a country without such circumstances happening ever again. That means once the election of the president is done in Parliament, the country moves forward instantly out of election mode and into nation building. I have to address the misconception that we have taken away the right to vote by citizens. This bill in no way removes the one man, one vote as set up by our war veterans pre-1980. Instead, it gives us an opportunity to test the organizational ability of the chosen candidate. Taking a look at our previous elections, in some instances we had more than 20 candidates for president. If we are to be honest with ourselves, the presidency should not be reduced to an office of chancellors. If one feels they are the better candidate, then by all means they should show their ability to coordinate majority MPs in this House, which in itself is a fair balance of the country's regions. Mr. Speaker, our government by nature is a structure. It is impossible to lead the country if you do not believe in structures. This bill will also test the ability of political parties to show their organizational capacities. If you cannot organize your political party to attain more than 50% of MPs in this House, then surely you do not deserve to be president of Zimbabwe. I now bring the attention of the House to clause 4, 9, and 10 as I zone in on the newly proposed 7 years. Too often the country has had to focus on election after election, with less time attributed to meaningful development. Our President, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, has been exemplary and has once again instilled the belief that we can indeed realize the vision of economic prosperity in our lifetime. Just taking a look from when he took over, we did not have a stable currency, nor did we think we would achieve one. Power cuts were a daily challenge, while our productivity levels were unsatisfactory. Fuel queues were considered a normal occurrence, and the roads were just not up to standards. Even our border posts, Mr. Speaker, were full only of passengers, nothing to import or export. This is the reality we lived in 2017. Now look at the difference 8 years later. Has made not only that on the things we see on ground, but even the mentality of the average forward-thinking Zimbabwean. And these years that I mentioned include the 2 years of slow growth due to COVID-19 and the 2 elections that we had to go through. Imagine what we would be if we went throughout this period without those 2 cycles of elections. 8 years later, where would we be right now? With our growth trajectory and an uninterrupted 7-year cycle, we can finally dare to dream that Zimbabwe can become a high-income economy by 2050. Allow me to shift to the rights of traditional leaders as proposed in this bill, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would want to say, and I would want to highlight, that the bill does not require traditional leaders to be political participants or be politically active. It only proposes that if a traditional leader chooses to engage in politics, they must not be criminalized for doing so. What then does it mean to be politically active or to engage in politics? When traditional leaders go to vote, that in itself is an act of engaging in politics, because you have to pick one political party over another. Should we therefore then deny them the right to vote? By no means. I would go further and use the highlighted example by the minister that said, he even mentioned that our chiefs are there in Senate. The Senate, which itself is political in nature. Should we therefore criminalize them for being in Senate and voting for one bill over another? By no means. So therefore, we should not take away their right to be politically active. On the Gender Commission, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the coming together of the Gender and Human Rights Commission. I do, however, recommend that the provisions should be made to ensure priority to our women, as they are the most affected by human rights. To ensure this, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would propose a provision that the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission be a woman, and at least 60% of the commissioners be female. Doing so ensures the focus of gender issues is not diluted and strengthens the idea that direct representation of our women within the commission itself will keep gender matters at the forefront. I would want to make an example, Mr. Speaker. I would want to make an example of the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small, Medium, and Enterprise Development. Though it focuses on women, as per the name, it is not entirely focused on women's matters. Hence the part of community, small, and medium enterprises. Shall we therefore make noise and say the ministry should be a standalone, and economic and small and medium enterprise should be standalone? By no means. If we can accept that the ministry, coupled with other related matters, can stand, then surely we can accept that the Gender Commission and the Human Rights Commission can be one thing. As I rush to conclude, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me say that this is Amendment Bill number 3. This means to say that we had Constitutional Amendment number 1 and Constitutional Amendment number 2. I stand before you today being a beneficiary of Constitutional Amendment number 2, amongst with many others here in this House. Yet, there was no such thing as a referendum. Constitutional Amendment number 2 brought about young parliamentarians like myself. It also brought about women to serve in local authorities through the amendment of Section 124 of our Constitution. This is empirical evidence that the Constitution is a living document, and it must adapt to the changing times and needs of a nation. It was high time that youth were taken and included in decision-making bodies such as Parliament. And this was delivered by Constitutional Amendment number 2. Now it is high time that we as Parliament follow the economic agenda set by President E.D. Mnangagwa, and this will be delivered by Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. This bill will be our legacy as the 10th Parliament, as it signifies our direct intent to pushing the conversation towards nation building over political hullabaloo. And with that, Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next Honorable Member who take the floor is Honorable M. Gomo. Honorable M. Gomo.
Ngiyabonga somlomo ohloniphekayo, litshona njani? Inkulumo yomthetho wesisekelo weZimbabwe esibiza sithi Amendment Bill number 3 oka 2026. Ngiyasukuma namhlanje ukusekela ukuthi lumthetho esikhuluma ngawo ngiyawusekela njengomuntu ovela eMatabeleland North Province. Ngikhuluma nje ngisukuma ngikhulume labo mama, omama bathi bona bayakhuleka ukuthi ngani ibhili leli esikhuluma ngalo libhili elingaphumelela, libe libhili elikhona elisetshenziswayo. Ukuze batho njalo bathi bona isikhathi esiningi kuyalungiselela ukhetho lungalungiselelwa luthi selukhona kukhethwa abameli bezi izindawo zonke ofanele bamele kodwa ngesikhathi sakhona kwenzakala ngaso kuba isikhathi esifitshane okuletha ukuthi ngesikhathi lesesilutshwane okhethiweyo kungamniki ithuba elipheleleyo lokusebenza uzathi lokho ekhangelele ukulungisela ukusebenza kube khona ukuthi iminyaka yakhona isisiya ekupheleni yena engakenzi lutho ethu yakhangela ngokuhamba kwesikhathi abesebona sokulomunye ngale osekhuluma ngokhankaso ngoba isikhathi sokhankaso sabe sesifikile ngalokho ke ibhili liyasincedisa ukuthi sikhulume singakhulumi mayelana lokuthi ibhili leli lisincedisa ukuthi nxa sikhuluma singakhulumi ngokuthi khona ukhetho lube khona eminyakeni emihlanu liyasithembisa ukuthi kufanele sikhulume ngeminyaka eyisikhombisa okuzakwenza ukuthi lokhethiweyo alungiselele ukuthi yena uzakhokhela kanjani njalo uzahambela ziphi laziphi izindawo ngendlela efaneleyo uthi iminyaka emibili owesithathu umnyaka abesesukuma eqalisa ukuyabona abantu ekhulumisana labantu yikho kwenza sithi thina khona siyakusekela lokhu ukuthi kwenzakala njalo futhi okukhona ibhili leli ayisikho ukuthi liyakhupha ukuma kwesimo se-constitution yethu yeZimbabwe hayibo sike sabalathi sathi singena ku-2013 sangena ngebhili sangena nge-constitution esithi ngentsha kodwa sasihamba sikhuluma ebantwini sithi khona khangela nini ibhrugwe leliseligcwele izigamba sisithi i-constitution endala lalamhlanje siyasiqala lesi sigamba ukuthi kusebenzeke sibe khona ku-constitution asitshintshanga lutho akutshintshwanga lutho kodwa kukhona ukuthi yisigamba isigamba siyaqala ukuthi sisebenze asizogamba eziningi zingabaningi kuzakhulunywa ngokuthi kuyatshintshwa khathesi asikhulumi ngakho lokho okulandelayo ukuthi futhi sinanzelela ukuthi upresident ubekhethwa ngabantu bonke elizweni ucabanga amaphepha ilizwe lonke ahamba sithiwa kukhetha upresident ayimalini mangaki ukhangele lendleko zokuthi nxa upresident ekhethwa kuba khona lamalunga amanye asondela khonapho esiyancedisa kukhangelela ukuthi nxa kunjalo kuhamba indleko eziningi kakhulu okukwenza ukuthi even kwenza ukuthi le fuel engabe beyisebenzisa ibe nengi kakhulu ngenguquko esifuna ukuthi ibe khona sifuna umongameli akhethwe ngamalunga ephalamende wonke sigoqela lawe seneta babe yibo abakhethayo umongameli wethu njalo futhi ekukhethweni kwakhona ekhetha umongameli lowo uzakwenza ukuthi intuthuko elizweni ihambe ngoba imali eziningi zingaphelelanga ukhetho ezibakhona ukhetho lungaba khona amalunga ephalamende ayiwo ahlala labantu ayiwo akhangelwe ngabantu bawathatha bawalethe ephalamende athi nxa selapha ephalamende alelungelo ngoba yibo vele abakhangela inhlelo abafanele bazithatha apha abazisebantwini balelungelo lokukhetha umongameli njalo futhi okokugcina ngcina ngokuthi umongameli sicela ngokuthi ibhili leyana ekuthiwa ikhutshiwe eyegender siyafisa ukuthi ikhangelisiswe ngoba ibhili leyana igoqele izinto eziningi labantwana abadlongulwayo uba kukhona ukuthi ibhili lani igender lani bilandelela ukuthi abantwana abadlengulwayo banjani babonakale kungafihlakali umsebenzi ube lula singafaka kube yindawo eyodwa umsebenzi uzaba nzima okunye kuzafihlakala okunjengokumela omama asoze kubambeke kuhle ngoba la khathesi omama ukuthi baphila ngokuthi kuncengelezelwe ukuthi siyeguqa kuyo yona igender isithungamele ekukhokheleni izinto zonke ngokuhlukumezeka emakhaya njengezinto zamalifa izinto zonke ezikhona ziyakhulunywa lapha kule i-commission besicela ukuthi i-commission le ibuyele ngalokho ngithanda ukuthi ngime lapha ngiyabonga.
Siyabonga olandelayo ohloniphekayo Honorable S. Matsunga. Honorable Matsunga.
Maita basambatu wechigaro nemukana wamandipa wekuti ndiwane manzwi ekutaura mu Amendment Bill number 3 2026. Chekutanga Mr. Speaker ndinoda kutaura nenhau yeGender Commission inova iyo iri mu Amendment number 3. Mr. Speaker, handisi kubvumirana nayo kuti Gender Commission inge ichiparara. The reason why ndakamira ndakadai I am a product of Gender Commission. Chechipiri Mr. Speaker, kuti muchiona vana mai nana baba.
The reason why.
Yeah, the reason why.
Is chikonzero.
Chikonzero ruregerero mbati wechigaro. Chikonzero chandinoti handibvumirane nazvo inhau yekuti Gender Commission yakamira kubva kumashure kwese uku madzimai achishungurudzika munhau dzeGBV. Chekutanga munhau dzesexual harassment Gender Commission yakamira kuti pange pane inonzi Marriage Act. Gender Commission yakaita basa hombe kuti ugova uriwo zvakare mutemo ichisimudzira kunyangwe madzimai nevanasikana vari kunze vanova vatinotungamirira. Mubati wechigaro zvakare tikatarisa nyaya dzekusimudzirika chaidzo dzemadzimai munhau dzematongerwo ezvenyika Gender Commission yakamira ikaita basa rekuisa dzidziso nekusimudzira madzimai kuti ange achimira akwanise kumira semamiriro andakaita kudai ndisingagade gade asi ndakasimba ndine confidence pachirungu ndatadza kuti ndoisa sei muchishona kuburikidza neGender Commission mubati wechigaro mudare rino reparlamendi semadzimai zvizhinji tatisina ruzivo asi kuburikidzwa neGender Commission yakaita kuti iwane simba rekutipa dzidziso ikatatsvakirudzo pasi rose renyika ino yeZimbabwe kuti aone kuti madzimai azive kodzero dzavo nokuti madzimai mazhinji airarama asingazive kodzero dzavo. Nhasi madzimai mazhinji akukwanisa kumira achinge abhinywa achikwanisa kutaura kuburikidza neGender Commission. So chikumbiro changu mubati wechigaro ndechekuti dai Gender Commission yaramba iripo nokuti mukatarisa kunze uku magoritoto awanda anova marapist vari kushungurudza vana vadiki. Tiri kutaura isu kuti mwanasikana anoenda pabonde adarika makore 10 asi zvino kuna vana baba vari kubhinya vana vane makore 9 chaiwo ekurarama zvinova zvinhu zvinorwadza. Makore 5 chaiwo zvinova zvinhu zvinorwadza. Ndiani achazova mumiririri wemwanasikana nemudzimai kunze uko? Ndiani achazoita tsvakurudzo rekuunza bhuku richazoverengwa kana muno rekuti tasangana nemabhinya akadai mukati menharaunda dzatinogara inova iyo database? So chikumbiro changu ndaikumbirisa kuti Gender Commission, Ministry of Women Affairs inoda vabatsiri mabandiko anobva kunana Gender Commission achibatsira. Chechipiri mubati wechigaro panhau yemadzimambo maererano nekuti madzimambo anga achipinda mumatongero ezvenyika nechikonzero chekuti madzimambo mukukura kwedu tine hunhu hwatakakura tichirayirwa tichienda pamatare vasingaite zvenyika. Ezvino mukatarisa muzvivhitivhiti mubati wechigaro kuti nyaya zhinji dziri kutongwa mumatare nyaya dziri kuitika nekuda kwekuti vanhu vari kushungurudzana mudzimba vachiripisa. Saka madzimambo akauya mumatongerwo ezvenyika, madzimai ari mudzimba ari kuenda kunoita chipfambi achaita chipfambi chakakapetwa kana kashanu kagumi. Zvinova zvinhu zvinoita kuti hunhu hwedu ubuntu hunge huchirasika pachiraramiro nemagariro edu. So chikumbiro changu ndechekuti uyu mutemo uyu hauna kukodzera kuti madzimambo anga achipinda muzvimatongerwo enyika. Hongu vakauya kubandiko repamusoro variko ivavo tinovaremekedza nekuti vachanomiririra vachitaura kuti zvii zviri kuitwa, nekuti kune mitemo inofanira kunge madzimambo achiteedzera kuburikidza nematare avanotonga kwavanobva kumakona mana enyika. Chechitatu mubati wechigaro pane nhau iri muamendment number 3 inova nechekuita nechekuti president vasarudzwe mudare reparliament. Ndinowirirana nayo. Chikonzero ndichiwirirana nayo sedungamunhu. Patinoenda kusarudzo dzega dzega mubati wechigaro, mumiririri anenge ari pachigaro sechamakagara kumapato akasiyana siyana, kune hondo dzinouya, kuna zvinoitika zvakawanda zvinova zvinounza mhirizhonga inova nanhasi haisati yapera. Mwari kutaura kuti anopaona chete. Ndiye Mwari tisaka tiri pano. Dai asiri Mwari takaparara nekuda kwevanhu vari kunze. So ndiri kuti inini president ngaasarudzwe muno, mutungamiriri wenyika ngaasarudzwe muno. This is not the first amendment yakugadzirwa mudare reparliament. Ndakanga ndirimo kubva 8th parliament, 9th parliament, 10th parliament. Saka mutemo une kodzero yekuti unogona kungogadzirwa zvakare muno nekuti tisu varidzi vemutemo tisu tinougadzira. So ndinobvumirana nekuti Amendment Bill number 3 2026 mukuru wenyika vanova president ngavasarudzwe nemamembers of parliament. Kunze uko taichema mubati wechigaro tichiti tabirwa ma-elections, tasangana nezvakati, tasangana nezvakawanda, ngazviuye muno, zvovoterwa muno, tozochema neparliament tiri muno. Tiri muno. Regai nditi zeki mubati wechigaro ine kodzero yekuparara yekubva zvachose. Mukaenda nhasi mubati wechigaro munoona baba vangu vakafa 2005 musi wa 11 March vachirimo muvoters room. Havasi kuita basa ravo namazvo. Ndakatarisa hama dzangu dzose, ndakaberekwa muimba ine vanhu 7. Baba vangu vakashaya, madzikoma angu nehanzvadzi dzangu 4 vakashaya, tasara tiri 3 vese vari muvoters room. So chikonzero chekuti zeki inge iripo handichione, ngavaende iparare nekuti basa ravo harina kujeka. Regai ndipinde panhau ye-extension iyo ndinotenderana nayo mubati wechigaro. Mubati wechigaro sei ndichitenderana nayo? Ndinotenderana nayo nekuda kwekuti zvizhinji zvataona muSecond Republic hatigone kutenda nemaziso, hatigone kutenda nemuromo, hatigone kuyemura chakanaka chaitwa. Tine zvizhinji zvatinotaura. Kuna trabablas dzikadozo dzikamai mabhunu, kuna mamwe akawanda ari kuvakwa. Migwagwa chaiyo yekuuya pano tainetsekana mubati wechigaro. Tiri kuona kuti migwagwa iri kutanga kugadzirwa zvisina kubvira zvaitika.
Can the honorable member be held in silence, please? Can you proceed?
ndatenda hangu mubati wechigaro. Tikaenda pa-airport yedu Robert Mugabe International Airport taitonge nherera, asi yezvinezvi taakuona kuti pane chirungu chakaiswa kunadzurudzwa nekuda kwedevelopment. Election, Mr. Speaker, inotitorera mari zhinji, yatitorera mari zhinji nesuwo wacho isusu tietavhoterwa tesara tiri ndonda. So ndiri kuti ngaiwedzerwe 2 years timbofadaya tishande tione nekusimudzirana nevakuru. Regai nditi mubati wechigaro, zvizhinji zviri kuitwa neSecond Republic. Ndaiti kana ndichinge ndaenda kumusha kwangu, kwandinobva kwaGutu, ndaitambura nemutunhu wandaifamba makilomita anokwanisa kusvika 40 kilometers kuenda kunochera mvura. Asi iye zvino every village yaane mabhoho ekuti hatichafamba mutunhu, mabhoho apa nzvimbo. Nutrition, madzimai akwanisa kurima, akwanisa kuzviriritira. That's sustainability, kubudirira kwemadzimai, kubudirira kwenyika yose. Izvozvo zvega ndinozvitenda zveextension kuti ngaipfuurire mberi. Neiwa yamashoko mubati wechigaro, ndoda kukutendai nemukana wamandipa. Thank you so much.
Order. Order. The next honorable member to take the floor is Honorable Kashambe.
Regai nditore mukana uno kukutendai mubati wechigaro. Ndichisumuka pano ndinoda kutenda kuti zvandiri kutaura ndo zviri kubva kumhuri yeseke, uyezve takaita mukana wekuve wevamwe vakatenderera Mashonaland East yese 9 districts, ndichitambira mashoko nemazwi evanhu vakasiyana siyana maererano nebill number 3, ende ndinoda kuti rakasapotwa muMashonaland East, rakasapotwa Maseke zvainwisa mvura. Saka ini ndogovo ani, zvino ini ndigovo ani kuti ndirambe zvido zvevanhu. For the voice of people is the voice of God. Chakazonyanyawo kuti neniwo ndaa munhu ndomene nditi ndinotsigirawo zvekare iri bumbiro remutemo. Ndinoda kutanga nenyaya yekusarudzwa kwemutungamiri wenyika muno mudare reparamende. Mubati wechigaro zvataurwazve speaker after speaker achitaura kukosha kwazvakaita nekusununguka kwazvakaita nekuratidza jekerere kwazvinoita kana mutungamiriri wenyika achisarudzwa mune rino dare. Zvobva zvatirwisira kurwa kwataita nguva dzose kuti tichibva kusarudzo tine vataingozivawo kuti igaro ziva kuti totoenda navo kukoti nekuti vanenge vachiramba zvinenge zvabuda musarudzo. Zvino kapa haticharamba takabata vana veZimbabwe mapendekete kuti zvino zvichabuda zvichinzi chiko iko kumatare edzimhosva. Tigotiro nebasa guru raitwa nemutungamiriri wedu wenyika rekuti vanhu vekunze, mari dzekunze vauye muno muZimbabwe vagobatanawo nesu sezvatiri kuona pose patiri kufamba, vatinoti mainvestors vanenge vakangomirira kuti tinzweka kuti chii chichabuda kumatare edzimhosva. Saka ini ndinoti nemhuri yeMashisi yandakanzwa itaura nemhuri yeseke. Aiwa, mutungamiriri wenyika ngaavhoterwe muno mudare reparamende. Mubato wechigaro, nyaya yekuwedzerwa kwemakore emutungamiriri wenyika hapasi kumbonzi ava Munangagwa nekuti ndo varipo, asi nevachauyewo zvekare vanenge vapihwawo makore aya manomwe. Hazvisi kumbonzi isu nekuti tisu vadare veparamende tichawanawo mairi kwete ekufa daya asi yekuti tipedzisewo kukombera mabasa atiri kubata kumamisha uko. Ndingapa muenzaniso wokumusha kwangu kwaSeke, aiwa budiriro haisi kumbopfuurawo, iri kutosvikawo neko. Iko zvino mugwagwa wedu weSeke unoenda kumarondera kuHwedza uchienda nepakati apa, mukaenda iko zvino aiwa ibishi uri kushandwa. Tigotarisawo iwo matorogetsi, tigotarisawo zvimwe zviri kumuvwa. Tinodaka kuti mukuru wedu wenyika aripo vapihwe kamukana wokuti vapedzise zvavo kamakore maviri kusvika 2030 mabasa apere. Takadaro imo muno tingangorova zvedu imbwa takaviga mupinyi, asi patinombokurukuro tiri pamwe chete ko hazvina kuvanzikaka kuti muno tiri vana vanyamunhu, tiri maZimbabwenzi tese, tine zvatinototaura tiri tega. Hapana asiri kumbodawo kuti apedzise mabasa ake aanawo muno. Vamwe patabva pa9th parliament kwakaitika denda redzihwa COVID-19. Ngatisambotarisei
Point of order. Point of order.
Order, Honorable Gashambe. Point of order, Honorable Zvaipa.
Chokwadi. Handisinyatsokunzwisisa mubato wechigaro matauriro aita honorable member kuti tikawedzera 2 years mukuru anenge apedza mabasa edevelopment. Ko kana asina kupera vari kureva kuti kudii kumukuru ava? Ndatenda.
Honorable Zvaipa, regai Honorable Gashambe wataure pfungwa dzavo, imi muchapiwawo mukana wokutaurawo dzei. Honorable Gashambe, endererai mberi.
Ndinotenda mubato wechigaro nemhinduro yamapa Honorable Zvaipa, nekuti ndo zvakarewo zvandaa ndichazongovatsanangurira kuti wanai mukana wokuti mutaure, asi tinotenda. Mubato wechigaro, ndinoda kubata nyaya yezeki kubva kwekuranwa kwemaelections kubva kuzaki neregistration kuenda kwaregistrar. Regai nditange nekutorawo mukana wokuve pedyo negurukota rinoonawo nezvehome affairs vakazembeka zembe. Vakatozotaurawo pajekerere zvekare kuti munozivisawo kumaconstituency kwenyu nenyika kuti registrar general zvaiveko kare tichishandisa manual system mumapepa, aiwa iko zvino zvavandudzwa, zvose zvava mumakombiyuta. Mwana achizvarwa achitora birth certificate zvinobva zvangovewo mukombiyuta. Munhu achifawo paitorwa death zvinobva zvavewo mukombiyuta muchizvino zvino. Ende uyezve vakati tigokuzivisaiwo kuti senyika nevamwe vane kukahadzika kuti registrar general nechirongwa chedevolution icho chiri kuimplementwa zvekare nenew dispensation, aiwa yakumadistricts kwese, yapatsanurwa, haichazi muHarare chete oro mumaguta. Kana neniwo kwaSeke pagrowth point yedema taakutotorawo zvitupa nemabirth certificate. Saka naizvozvo tiri kuedza kutaura kuti institution yedu yaregistrar yava kukwanisa kuita mabasa iwaya nemazvo uyezve nechimanje manje. Mubati wechigaro, madzimambo varitorimo kudhara mumatongerwo enyika. Changa chikatotaurika muno ndechekuti tichigadzira mutemo uyo watakavavanonokera kare, kuti kana vazvitaurawo vazvida zvisavasungise, nekuti hazvifanire kusungirwa ivhu ravo ravanenge vachitonga kana pfungwa dzavo, nekuti kana tikatarisa kwatabva uku senyika, iwayo madzimambo ndiwo aitotaurirawo varwi vehondo kuti fambai mukadai, nyika yakadai. Saka hatingarambe tichivarwisa. Vanoda vanopinda mumatongerwo enyika, vasingade havafanirwe kusungirwa kuti varamba koro vazvidirei. Ndo zvandingataure nezvematongerwo enyika. Ndochipedzisira mubati wechigaro nenyaya yedelimitation commission. Mubati wechigaro ndinosapota zvakazara kuti komisheni iveko, nekuda kwekuti kwandinobva mubati wechigaro kwaseke mupatsanurirwo wakaitwa warwisanisa madzimambo, vana Samusha nesuwo zvekare vamiririri vevanhu. Rimwe bandiko unoriwana riri kuGoromonzi asi richinzi Seke constituency, rimwe bandiko unoriwana riri kuMarondera asi richinzi Seke, rimwe bandiko riri kuMarirangwe kuMhondoro mubati wechigaro, rimwe riri muno muHarare mubati wechigaro. Saka mukati meizvozvo zvakonzera kuti miganhu, munoiziva hondo yemiganhu, madzimambo nyaya dzavo dzimwe dzakutongwa kuMarondera idzo dziri dzekwaseke, naivo pachezvavo manharaunda yavo zvakonzeresa zvakasiyana siyana. Naizvozvo mubati wechigaro I support 100% delimitation commission kuti ivepo. Ndinotenda nezvandataura zvara. Thank you very much.
Tinotenda Honorable Kashambe. Next honorable member to take the floor is Honorable Bindrov.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Madam Speaker, ma'am, allow me to begin by commending the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs for bringing before the House the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment No.3 Bill 2026. I also commend the Joint Portfolio Committee for undertaking extensive nationwide consultations and producing a comprehensive report that reflect the views of the citizens from across Zimbabwe. As a member of Parliament for Vungu constituency, I consider it a privilege that the public hearing for Gweru district were hosted in Vungu constituency. This afforded our people and residents from across the district an opportunity to participate directly in this constitutional process. The hearing attracted well over 1,000 participants, and notably, the overwhelming majority supported the proposed amendments, demonstrating the confidence citizens have in the reforms being advanced, with only 3 participants expressing views contrary to the bill. The consultation revealed a clear desire for stability, continuity, and accelerated development. Citizens are increasingly focused on the completion of projects that improve livelihoods, create employment opportunities, and strengthen service delivery. Development is a process. Roads, power stations, irrigation schemes, schools, and hospitals require time, planning, and consistency. It is therefore understandable that many citizens supported measures that allow development programs to mature and deliver their intended benefits. The committee correctly observed that longer electoral cycles can contribute to policy consistency and effective implementation of national programs. Across the country, government has embarked on transformative projects, infrastructure, energy, agriculture, and social service delivery. Such programs require adequate time for planning, execution, and evaluation. In my own constituency, we are witnessing tangible development progress. The newly commissioned solar plant is creating opportunities for industrial growth, employment creation, and improved energy security. Government-supported agricultural programs continue to improve productivity and household incomes. The ongoing construction of Lower Gweru-Mawolen Road is improving connectivity, facilitating trade, opening up economic opportunities for surrounding communities. These projects require continuity if they are to realize their potential. Madam Speaker, allow me to respectfully submit that chiefs are citizens of Zimbabwe and should enjoy same constitutional rights and freedoms enjoyed by every citizen. They are custodians of our traditions, culture, and values, and remain important pillar of leadership within communities. If a chief chooses not to participate in politics, that decision must be respected equally. If a chief chooses to participate in politics and contribute to national development through political leadership, that choice must also be respected. Freedom should not be granted selectively. Our chiefs should have the liberty to determine their own path and exercise their rights accordance with their consciences and aspirations. Madam Speaker, an African proverb teaches us that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Likewise, development should be measured by projects completed and lives transformed, citizens once road completed, industries revived, jobs created, reliable electricity, improved agricultural productivity, a better public service. Above all, they want national development to remain at the center of our collective efforts. In this, therefore, on behalf of the people of Vungu constituency, in the broader national interest, that I support the report of the Joint Portfolio Committees on the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment No.3 Bill 26 and the recommendation contained therein. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Ndlovu. Next honorable member to take the floor is Honorable Mshoriwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to debate. Madam Speaker, today is not just an ordinary parliamentary day. The House, Madam Speaker, is being asked to decide whether we remain faithful custodians of the Constitution of Zimbabwe or whether we become accomplices in dismantling it. I rise, Madam Speaker, to oppose this bill in its entirety. I oppose it, Madam Speaker, because it is unnecessary. I oppose it, Madam Speaker, because it is dangerous. I oppose it because it is anti-democratic. Most importantly, Madam Speaker, I oppose it because it seeks to reverse every democratic gain which we achieved in the 2013 Constitution. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Justice, Honorable Ziyambi Ziyambi, he wants us to believe that this bill is about improving governance. It is not. The Minister asked us to believe that this bill is about constitutional development. It is not. The Minister further asked us to believe that this bill is about national interest. Madam Speaker, I submit it is not. This bill, Madam Speaker, is about one thing and one thing alone, which is the accumulation and preservation of political power. If this bill was truly about improving the life of ordinary Zimbabweans, we would be seized at this moment, amending the Constitution to guarantee jobs, strengthen health care, improve education, and protect the citizens from poverty. We are not doing that, Madam Speaker. Instead, what we have today, Madam Speaker, is a bill whose beneficiaries are us politicians and not the people. The people get nothing. Politicians get everything. Madam Speaker, you will recall when Zimbabwe overwhelmingly voted the 2013 Constitution, and I want to state here, Madam Speaker, there were more than 3.2 million Zimbabweans who casted their votes, of which 3,079,000 voted for the 2013 Constitution, which represented 94.5% of Zimbabweans. That says this Constitution is a better Constitution. It was a compromise document which would actually push this country forward. This Constitution, Madam Speaker, the Constitutional Amendment Bill that we have, the current Constitution we have, the 2018, was meant to do the things to limit us politicians. Not what we want to do today, Madam Speaker. Today, CAB 3 wants us politicians to limit the Constitution. The Constitution, Madam Speaker, was designed to protect citizens from those in power. Today, those in power seek protection from the Constitution. That is the fundamental danger before us. Madam Speaker, the Minister repeatedly says constitutions are living documents. Indeed they are. But living documents, Honorable Speaker, are supposed to evolve forward, not backward. Progress is moving democracy to more democracy. Progress is moving from concentrated power to distributed power. Progress is moving from rulers controlling citizens to citizens controlling rulers. This bill takes us the opposite direction. It is not constitutional evolution. It is constitutional regression. It is a journey backwards. Madam Speaker, one of the most offensive aspects of this bill is the assumption that politicians know better than the people. At every turn, this bill removes power from citizens and transfers to politicians. The people are told they can no longer be trusted to directly elect their president. Politicians will decide. Really. The people are told they must wait longer before they can hold leaders accountable through elections. Madam Speaker, the people of Zorasekwa on 23 August 2023 gave me a 5-year mandate which expires on 3rd September 2028. There are people within my party whom I beat in the primary elections who desire to be members of parliament for Zorasekwa. There are people from ZANU-PF whom I defeated in the general elections that also desires to be members of parliament for Zvarasekwa. Everybody should be given the opportunity at the expiry of the 5-year term to go. If the people still want Mshoriwa as the MP for Zvarasekwa, they should vote me back. It is wrong, Madam Speaker, for Mshoriwa to stand to be here and participate in extending my own contract. Yet my bosses, the people of Zvarasekwa, do not know. You are aware, Madam Speaker, that the Honorable Minister has told us that we will not go to a referendum. Because in his wisdom and in his view, he thinks it is not necessary. I'm not going to comment too much on this because it's a matter that is too sub-juice. But I believe that anything that tends to benefit me, to benefit all of us here in Parliament, to benefit the current president, it needs the people of Zimbabwe to have their say. And they can only do that, Madam Speaker, through a referendum. If the people say it's okay, then it is fine. Not the few of us here, the beneficiaries of the people that casted their vote for us, to simply say, no, let's extend our term. Madam Speaker, the people today are being told through this Cape 3 that constitutional safeguards are obstacles. Politicians have the right to decide. And I believe, Madam Speaker, that it is arrogance of its highest order. It is a constitutional betrayal. Zimbabwe, Madam Speaker, does not reside in Parliament. The sovereignty of Zimbabwe resides in its people. We are merely temporal custodians of authority entrusted to us by the citizens, temporarily for a 5-year period. We do not own Zimbabwe, Madam Speaker. We do not own the Constitution. We do not own the future. Madam Speaker, every generation of politicians faces a temptation. The temptation to believe that because they possess numbers today, they think they possess legitimacy forever. History teaches us otherwise, Madam Speaker. Parliamentary majority come and go. Political parties, they rise and fall. But constitutions should endure. This is why constitutions must never be manipulated to suit a temporal interest of those occupying public office. Madam Speaker, the Constitution must outlive politicians. The Constitution must restrain politicians. The Minister, the Honorable Minister of Justice, speaks of stability. I found that argument deeply troubling. Throughout history, attacks on democracy have always been justified in the name of stability. The answer to every democratic demand has been, we need stability. The answer to every demand for accountability has been, we need stability. The answer to every demand for citizens' participation has been, we need stability. But true stability does not come from extending political power. True stability comes from constitutional legitimacy. True stability comes from free and fair elections. True stability comes from accountable leadership. True stability comes from citizens believing that the rules apply equally to everyone. Madam Speaker, Zimbabwe has many pressing problems. Citizens are struggling to survive. Young people are searching for opportunities. Business are battling economic uncertainty. Public service requires urgent attention. Yet government's constitutional priority is not solving these challenges. If the priority is altering the rules of politics, that tells us everything we need to know, Madam Speaker. There is a profound difference between constitutional reform and constitutional manipulation. Constitutional reform strengthens democracy. Constitutional manipulation strengthens politicians. Constitutional reform empowers citizens. Constitutional manipulation empowers us office holders. Constitutional reform expands accountability. Constitutional manipulation reduces accountability. CAB 3, Madam Speaker, falls squarely into the second category of constitutional manipulation. Madam Speaker, it's not very long ago, just a few years ago, 2017, Zimbabweans were promised a new dispensation. They were promised democratic renewal. They were promised constitutionalism. They were promised respect for institutions. Yet today we are being asked to support amendments that undermine the very constitutional principles that Zimbabwe were promised would be protected. That tragedy, Madam Speaker, is not merely that the government has brought this bill. The tragedy is that some who once defended constitutionalism are now defending constitutional erosion. Some who once demanded limits on power now seek to expand power. Many of us will know, at the tail end of the former president, Robert Mugabe's reign, how many of the people who are sitting on my right were calling for accountability, but today are actually singing a different hymn. History, Madam Speaker, will record those contradictions. Future generation will ask, what we did when the Constitution was placed under threat? And I speak this to all honorable members. Future generation will ask whether we defended the People's Charter or we surrendered it. They will ask whether we defended the democracy or we weakened it. My answer today is clear, and I say this to the people's Varasekwa. I oppose this CAB 3 in all its clauses. I refuse to participate in the dismantling of the democratic gains secured by the Zimbabweans.
Honorable Mshoriwa, you are left with 5 minutes.
Thank you. I refuse, Madam Speaker, to endorse constitutional changes that weaken citizen sovereignty. I refuse to support amendments that place political interests above national interests. This bill represents a retreat from constitutional democracy. It represents a retreat from accountability. Madam Speaker, in 2017, and all of us will recall what transpired. We woke one morning. We saw on our national television men in army uniform addressing us. They told us that the president is safe. We want to deal with the criminals surrounding the president. Madam Speaker, Madam...
Point of order.
Order, Honorable Mshoriwa. What is your point of order?
Atichaziva, Madam Speaker, kuti tiri kudebata bill here kana dzave dzimwe nyaya.
Mazvita Honorable ndizvozvo Honorable Mshoriwa debate bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wanted to remind this august house. The second republic, what uttered the second republic, Madam Speaker, started on that day. The expectation of the Zimbabwean people was that never again shall we have the fuel to manipulate the president. I want to tell you this, Madam Speaker, before I sit down. The current president came into the government in 1980. He has
Honorable Mshoriwa, I urge you to debate the bill, not about the current president.
No, but Madam Speaker, the bill seeks to extend the tenure of the current president and current parliament. So I'm actually within my purview, and I just wanted to put this on record, Madam Speaker.
Point of order.
Order, Honorable Mshoriwa. What is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, ma'am, kana munhu asingadi kudya nguruve iye pachake ngaarikudhorotwa vese havadyi nguruve ngaangoregera kuuya 2028 ogara kumba kwake. Ndatenda.
Honorable Mshoriwa, endererai mberi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the point I wanted to drive before I sit down was to simply say that President Emerson Mnangagwa, he has actually had a very commendable history in government. As a minister in various ministries, he has actually had the opportunity to become the Speaker of Parliament in the fifth Parliament. In fact, he was one of the best speakers that Zimbabwe has actually had.
Unfortunately, your time is up, Honorable Mshoriwa.
Point of privilege. Point of privilege. Point of privilege, Madam Speaker. I have a point of privilege.
Order.
Point of privilege. I have a point of privilege, Madam
Point
Speaker.
of privilege, Honorable.
My point of privilege, Madam Speaker, is that I humbly request that you give him 5 more minutes to wrap up his debate. Thank you very much.
I second.
Is there an objection?
Chair. Objection. Without debate,
There is an objection, Honorable Makumire. Next to take the floor is Honorable W. Sham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am, for letting me add my voice to this auspicious debate. Madam Speaker, ma'am, what I'll do, I'll begin by going back in history. Now, the first president of Ghana and the architect of Pan-Africanism, Kwame Nkrumah, once observed that, and I'll quote, "The forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart." Madam Speaker, ma'am, he regarded freedom from colonial domination as an inherent right of all peoples. Political independence was valuable, not simply because it brought economic benefits, but, Madam Speaker, ma'am, because it restored human dignity and sovereignty. Madam Speaker, ma'am, those words, I find them resonating profoundly in our current debate. The words of President Kwame Nkrumah remind us that the future of Zimbabwe must be determined by the aspirations of Zimbabweans themselves. By Zimbabweans themselves, not by external pressures, foreign interests, or imported narratives. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the Constitution of Zimbabwe must remain an expression of our sovereignty. It must remain an expression of our development priorities and our collective will as a people. Now, I will try, Madam Speaker, ma'am, and contextualize what I see happening within this debate. Some of the voices, some of the forces that impose illegal sanctions on our economy, sponsored regime change agendas, and have spent decades attempting to influence Zimbabwe's political destiny, are today seeking to lecture Zimbabwe on constitutional democracy. We have heard that narrative before, Madam Speaker, ma'am, and Zimbabwe will not be misled. We are very clear on what we want to see being achieved in this country. Madam Speaker, ma'am, this bill is a democracy in its most authentic form. It is democracy in its most authentic form. Why? Because it's homegrown. It's participatory. We saw people participating and people driven. In his report, the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs was very clear. The Chairman of Portfolio Committee on Legal Affairs, Honorable Zobo, was also very clear. 537,102 Zimbabweans made their voices heard in support of Constitutional Amendment No. 3 bill. Madam Speaker, ma'am, that is not the voice of a selective few. It is the unmistakable voice of the people of Zimbabwe. Those who claim to champion democracy should, at the very least, respect the democratic choices of Zimbabweans. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I'll go back to Kwame Nkrumah. He defined neo-colonialism as a state that is independent on paper, but whose economy, system of governance, policy decisions are still controlled from outside. Now, Madam Speaker, ma'am, neocolonialism no longer manifests itself under the banner of foreign occupation. It operates through economic dependency, digital domination, cultural influence, and external control over strategic national resources. It arrives, Madam Speaker, ma'am, through press statements, NGO reports, and funding conditions. Madam Speaker, ma'am, it seeks to dictate sovereign nations which constitutional choices are acceptable and which are not. It amplifies a small but a vocal minority while disregarding the overwhelming majority of citizens who would have spoken through established democratic processes, like we saw what happened throughout the process on the life of this debate. Madam Speaker, ma'am, Zimbabwe is no longer a colony. We are free. We do what we want to do. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I'm emphasizing this point because democracy is not the elevation of the loudest voices. It is the respect of the will of the majority. We cannot and will not accept a standard that diminishes the voice of our people in favor of externally driven narratives. Not today, not ever. Zimbabwe will never be a colony again. At its core, Madam Speaker, ma'am, this debate is about a determination. Zimbabwe's liberation struggle was not merely a fight for territorial independence. It was a struggle for the right of Zimbabweans to determine their own political, economic, and constitutional future. Thousands of sons and daughters of this nation took up arms because they rejected a system in which decisions about Zimbabwe made elsewhere and imposed upon its people. That founding principle, Madam Speaker, remains as relevant today as it was at independence in 1980. The destiny of Zimbabwe must be shaped by Zimbabweans themselves. The spirit of self-determination was what drove the people of Zimbabwe to take up arms so they can freely determine their political status, pursue their economic, social, and cultural development, and make decisions about their own lives without external interference. Madam Speaker, it is against that backdrop that we must view this bill as the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Ziambe aptly observed, and I want to quote him: "To do otherwise would be to elevate constitutional rigidity above national development and the sovereign will of the people." I close quote. Madam Speaker, that statement captures the essence of constitutionalism in a democratic society. Constitutions, like he emphasized, are not museum pieces frozen in time. They are living instruments designed to respond to the evolving needs, aspirations, and realities of a nation. Where refinement is necessary to strengthen functionality, coherence, and effective governance, Parliament has both the constitutional authority and the democratic responsibility to act, and we are acting. Madam Speaker, the true measure of constitutional fidelity lies not in resisting change for its own sake, but in ensuring that the Constitution continues to serve the people for whom it was created. And under the leadership of His Excellency, Comrade Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, Zimbabwe has made significant strides in reshaping international perceptions, moving from being viewed by some as a pariah state to being increasingly recognized as an attractive destination for investment, for trade, and diplomatic engagement. Madam Speaker, I will now try and underscore a point which I think we sometimes talk about without making a proper analysis. Let's take the Gwai Shangani Dam, which I feel provides a compelling illustration of why extending the electoral cycle is necessary to safeguard national development projects from recurring political disruptions. This project, Madam Speaker, was first conceived in 1912, and construction commenced many decades later. Today, the dam has reached approximately 97% overall completion, while the pipeline that will ultimately supply water to Bulawayo is about 70% complete. Now, this demonstrates, Madam Speaker, the intrinsic and enduring need for water security among the people of Bulawayo and the surrounding regions. However, the project's implementation has repeatedly been hindered by electoral cycles and associated fiscal uncertainties. In 2013, Madam Speaker, budget realignment resulted in the demobilization of contractors. Between 2018 and 2019, funding gaps and delays in the tendering process for the pipeline further slowed progress. Moreover, Madam Speaker, The 6-month periods before and after elections often bring cautionary freezes on major project payments and expenditure commitments, resulting, Madam Speaker, ma'am, in stalled implementation. Consequently, the pipeline remained stuck at approximately 50% completion in 2023 and only advanced to 70% by mid-2026. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the economic consequences of these delays are significant. Government estimates indicate that each year of delay costs approximately, Madam Speaker, ma'am, 40 million US dollars, excluding the wider losses arising from foregone economic activity. In Bulawayo, where maybe they could have been doing some other things, but they cannot do it. Escalating contract costs, inflation-related adjustments, and missed opportunities for industrial growth and investment. These costs, Madam Speaker, ma'am, overrun ultimately and place an additional burden on the taxpayer. This bill is thinking about the people. Madam Speaker, ma'am, President Mnangagwa's philosophy that Nika inovakwa nevenevayo is more than a slogan. It is a declaration of national agency and collective responsibility. It affirms, Madam Speaker, ma'am, that sustainable development is not imported, but conceived, driven, and owned by the people themselves. Through this philosophy, Madam Speaker, ma'am, Zimbabwe has embraced a culture of self-determination, resilience, and national responsibility, proving that the destiny of our nation lies not in the hands of others, but in the industry, ingenuity, and collective efforts of Zimbabweans
we are left
themselves.
with 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, let us look and ask ourselves, who benefits when those national development projects are interrupted every 5 years by destabilizing election seasons? It's not the farmer waiting for irrigation. It's not the young entrepreneur in Chebutu. And most definitely not the widow in Binga. Beneficiaries are those forces that do not want to see Zimbabwe succeed. Madam Speaker, ma'am, many honorable members who spoke before me gave examples of South Africa and Botswana, to mention but a few, as respected stable nations that elect their presidents through parliament. Yet, when Zimbabwe proposes the same model, suddenly it is authoritarian. Those are double standards, peddling the neo-colonialist mentality. That is neo-colonialism wearing a democracy costume. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the people of Zimbabwe understood this principle clearly. The 54,231 citizens who attended public hearings across all 10 provinces recognized a simple constitutional reality. If a parliament possesses the authority to remove a president through impeachment, it can equally be entrusted with the responsibility of electing a president. The logic is sound, Madam Speaker, ma'am. The president exists. Most importantly, the people have spoken. History, Madam Speaker, ma'am, will record what this parliament did when Zimbabwe's sovereign future hung in the balance. History will record whether, Madam Speaker, ma'am, we stood with our people or whether we compromised on the fundamental principle of sovereignty. Zimbabwe is not for sale. Zimbabwe is open for business and closed to external interference. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, ma'am, I speak today with the authority of the people of Chekut East constituency, who sent me to this August House to represent their interests. Their message was unequivocal. They support this bill totally. I therefore stand not only in my individual capacity, but as the voice of thousands of constituents who believe that this legislation is in the best interest of our nation and its future development. Madam Speaker, Constitutional Amendment No. 3 Bill defends the gains of our liberation struggle. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Shamu. Honorable Njanji.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand today representing the good people of Mazoe Central. I rise to add my voice in support of Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. Madam Speaker, at the heart of this debate is the need to strengthen the capacity of the presidency to effectively drive Zimbabwe's development agenda and deliver on the aspirations of our people. Madam Speaker, the presidency is not merely an office. It is the institution entrusted with providing national leadership, policy direction, and oversight of government programs. As we pursue Vision 2030, the demands placed upon the executive continue to grow in complexity and scope. It is therefore imperative that our constitutional framework evolves to support efficient governance, policy implementation, and national development. Madam Speaker, under the leadership of His Excellency President Dr. Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, Zimbabwe has witnessed significant economic transformation. We have seen major investments in mining, agriculture, energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing. Road rehabilitation programs, dam construction, rural industrialization initiatives, innovation hubs, and increased foreign investment attest to a nation on the move. Madam Speaker, the Second Republic has championed a development philosophy that leaves no one and no place behind. Communities that were once marginalized are now benefiting from roads, clinics, schools, irrigation schemes, and digital connectivity. These achievements require strong coordination and consistent leadership at the highest level of government. Madam Speaker, this bill seeks to ensure institutional stability, continuity, effectiveness in governance. Strong institutions anchored on capable leadership create confidence, attract investment, and accelerate economic growth. Madam Speaker, constitutional amendments should always serve the national interest. In this case, the proposed changes are designed to enhance the ability of government to deliver results and maintain the momentum of economic progress already being witnessed across the country. Madam Speaker, as Parliament today, our duty is to support measures that advance national development, strengthen governance, and improve the welfare of our citizens. Constitutional Amendment number 3 presents such an opportunity. Madam Speaker, I therefore urge this House to support the bill and contribute to the continued modernization, stability, and prosperity of our great nation. So I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Njanji. Honorable Esmoyo.
Ndolevuwa ngachipinga ichi chinena kompauri nane ndise muvono wanga ngahei bhili yoisiwaho ntswa ndotoma zvagender commission ndichiyamba uri gender ndandichikotama uri isungoisiwa kazimbabwe women rights idhiimele inti ngauri ndiyone yoritusawo usavo rine vafumakadzi uri huve navulalo dzinduni apa kahavavo mali wawo ropi wavo inopfi marriage act inakoitisa uri ridzule nga mulalo navo rine vafumakadzi roima parliament ngauri ri khou thusiwa nga gender commission vhasadzi ri vho kwanisa u ḓiimelela ri nthihi ra vhona uri futhi na vhana vhaṱuku vha tshisidzana heyi gender commission yo vha thuso nga maanḓa ngauri vhana vha vhasidzana a vha tsha ṱangana na zwo konḓaho sa zwa vha tshi ṱangana nazwo hu sina ano khou imelela vhana vha tshisidzana. Ndi khou livhuwa nga zwo itiwaho nga gender commission na vho rine ri hone henefha parliament sa vharangaphanḓa i khou ṱwa ya ḓa ya thusa vhafumakadzi uri vha kwanise uri vha ḓiimelele i si yone na vhorine vhafumakadzi ra ri sa ḓo kwanisa u vha ri tshi khou ima ri tshi khou yamba sa zwezwi ngauri ra vha ri tshi khou khwea mara ra fhiwa nḓila nga heyi gender commission. So a thi vhoni hu tshi tea uri gender commission u pfhi iyo ima nga Zimbabwe Women Rights a ime i nthihi sa madzulelo ya vha yo ita. Ndavha futhi ndo ima ndi kha committee ya Women Affairs ri kha committee ya Women Affairs ri khou ṱwa ra vhona gender commission i tshi khou ḓa i tshi khou thusa nga maanḓa i tshi khou funḓedza vhafumakadzi i tshi ri vhudza uri na vho rine ri na khou ranga nga phanḓa ri ṱuwe ri yo itisa hani ro no humela kha dzi constituency dza vho rine. Ndi vho ḓa kha ya vharangaphanḓa vha ma traditional leaders ndi ḓo yamba ngauri section yavho ya 281 yo dzula yo lamba uri vha ite zwa politics i tshi vha tendela mara uri vha ṱuwe vha yo vota. Saka nṋe nda ndi tshi khou tama uri havha vharangaphanḓa vha vhathu vha tshivhathu vha songo dzhena hezwi zwa uri na vhone vha khou ngo vhidziwa upfhi ndi vhone vha ma politics a vha ime henefho ngauri ndi vhone vha no khou ri kana hu na vhukhakhi ha khakhela na vhathu vha maphathi o siyanaho vha nga si kwanisi uri vha ri hoyu o luga kana uri hoyu o khakha ngauri vha khou vha vha tshi vho ima na wa phathi yavho. Saka zwi khwine uri vha songo dzula vho pfhi hoyu ndwa phathi heyi ha ime henefho hu tshipfi u khou imela vhathu vhoṱhe ha i khona uri vhathu vhafhio. Nda dovha nda ya kha u khethiwa prosecutor general section 259 ya i tshi khou ri prosecutor general u khou khethiwa nga murangaphanḓa wa shango a tshi khou thusiwa nga Judicial Service Commission mara zwezwino clause 20 i vho ri hone president u ḓo vha a tshi vho khetha until a si na muthu ano muthusa zwi nga si tshimbili nga nḓila i re yone ngauri hoyu prosecutor general ndi ene ano ḓo vha a tshi khou sedza uri hoyu u khou fanela uri a tongiwe nga nḓila heyi. Saka kana uri ono khethiwa nga muthu muthihi zwi khou vha zwi songo si tsha ima nga nḓila yavhuḓi. Ndi khou ya na kha ma-judges ndi khou ri na ma-judges zwa zwi sa tei zwavhuḓi uri a nangiwe nga murangaphanḓa wa shango ha nangiwe nga vhathu sa manangelo ovo o dzula zwi tshi itea. Ndi vho ya hafho kha heyi i no fhisa ndi sa nyaga u dzhia tshifhinga ngauri zwo dzula vhathu vha tshi khou yamba ngayo vhathu vhanzhi vho no yambesa ngayo ya murangaphanḓa wa shango. Nṋe ndi na muvhono wanga ndi khou vhona ro fhiwa tshifhinga tsha uri ri mone ri tshi khou pfha uri vhathu vha khou ri mini. Hu na muṅwe musadzi o takuwa a ri murangaphanḓa ha khethiwe nga parliament murangaphanḓa ha engedziwe ri vhone uri kana a tshi khou khethiwa nga parliament ngauri ri khou ḓivha uri na ma-constituency a 210 zwi ḓo vha hone na uri bulege dzi no pfhi a dzi na vhathu vhanzhi ya wanala hu tshi vho pfhi i na vhathu vhanzhi sa uzumba ndi fhe example ya uzumba hu na tshifhinga hapfhi uzumba yo fhiwa vhathu vhanzhi mara hu si na vhathu vhanzhi hu ḓo vha hu si tshena u lila uri zwezwino ho isiwa vhathu vhanzhi ho khethiwa vhathu vhanzhi vha siho ngauri havha vhathu vha 210 vha hone parliament a huna ano ḓo ri ho itiwa vhutsotsi kana ho itiwa mini. Nṋe ndi khou guma henefha thi phanḓa ndo livhuwa.
Honorable Moyo. Honorable W. Maposa.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, Madam. Good afternoon. Thank you. I rise to support the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. In doing so, Honorable Speaker, Madam, I am guided by the extensive consultation conducted throughout the country by the Joint Portfolio Committee, thematic committees of Parliament. This consultation reached all provinces and districts of Zimbabwe, Honorable Speaker, Madam, and received more than 540,000 written submission from citizens of our country. The overwhelming majority of those submissions supported the bill, Honorable Speaker, Madam, demonstrated that the proposed amendment reflects the aspiration of many Zimbabweans who desire stronger institutions, greater stability, and acceleration national development. Honorable Speaker, Madam, I particularly support the proposal that the President be elected by the Member of Parliament sitting in joint sessions. This amendment is both constitutional and sound, democratically legitimate. Section 97 of the Constitution already granted Parliament the authority to remove the President from the office. It is therefore logical and consistent that the same institution instructed with the removal of President should also possess the authority to elect one. Far from diminishing democracy, this model strengthens representative democracy because members of parliaments are derived from their mandate. They get their mandate direct from the people of Zimbabwe, from their constituents. When parliament elects a president, it does not as the collective, it does as a collective representative of every constituent and every citizen in our nation. Honorable Speaker, Madam, the committee also correctly observed that direct presidential elections have often been associated with significant financial costs, prolonged political contestation, and they should not consume resources that could otherwise be invested in providing the lives of our people. Every dollar saved from reducing cost electoral process can be redirected towards development of our roads, schools, clinics, irrigation schemes, water infrastructure, Honorable Speaker, and disaster preparation programs. As a constituent that experienced the devastation of Cyclone Idai, the people of Chimanimani West, where I come from, understand that development requires resources. Continuity and sustainable implementation will therefore come reforms that allow the government to focus on safe delivery, economic transformation than politics. Thank you also, Honorable Speaker, Madam. This proposal is not without precedence. We have countries such as South Africa, Botswana, and others around us successfully elect their president through parliamentary while maintaining democratic legitimacy. Political stability and constitutional government. Zimbabwe will therefore not be abandoning democracy, but rather adopting a model that has proven effective elsewhere or on our continent. Honorable Speaker, Madam, the fact that citizens elect members of parliament who then elect the president ensures that executive authority continue to drive for the people according with their constitution. Honorable Speaker, Madam, I also support the proposal to extend the electoral cycle for the presidential and parliamentary from 5 years to 7 years. Why am I saying this, Honorable Speaker, Madam? The committee observed that major development project requires long periods to reach completion and deliver tangible benefit to our citizens. Development is not achieved through short-term investment. Infrastructure projects, agricultural transformation programs, industrialization initiatives, and climate resilience investment often requires years of planning, fencing and planning before results become visible. politicians can place government in a perpetual campaign mode. Honorable Speaker, Madam, disrupting policy continuity and diverting attention from development priorities. A 7-year term provides more realistic time frame for government to implement long-term programs while maintaining accountability to the people. Actually, Honorable Speaker, Madam, 7 years is a short period of time. I was also proposing up to 10 years. Honorable Speaker, for the constituency such as Chimanimani West, where continue need to rehabilitate roads, strengthen irrigation infrastructure, promote tourism, and improve resilience against natural disaster, policy consistency is essential. Communities benefit when development plans are allowed sufficient to mature and yield meaningful results. Propose the extension of the electoral cycle. Therefore, support sustainable development and long-term national planning, Honorable Speaker, Madam. I further welcome the proposal to strengthen the Senate through inclusive of additional members possessing specialist expertise, which are very important in our country, even for any development, wherever they might be. The challenges confronting a modern nation are increasing complexity. Zimbabwe requires the expertise of engineers, economists, agricultural specialists, legal scholars, scientists, environmental experts, and other professionals who can contribute meaningfully to national policy formulation, Honorable Speaker, Madam. By broadening the pool of expertise available within Parliament, this amendment will improve the quality of legislative scrutiny, strengthen evidence and decision-making, and ultimately enhance government outcomes. Honorable Speaker, Madam, the committee analyzed especially highlighted the need for stability, policy continuity, institutional efficiency, and development-focused government. This amendment seeks to achieve precise those objectives. They provide an opportunity to strengthen democratic institutions, reduce unnecessary expenditure, enhance accountability, improve policy making, and create conditions necessary for sustainable economic growth and national development, Honorable Speaker, Madam, rather than quarrel here most of the time. Honorable Speaker, Madam, in conclusion, for those reasons, on behalf of the people of Chimanimani West, I support the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. I so submit, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Maposa. Honorable G. Mashavave.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. It is both an honor and privilege to stand before you today to speak about an important bill, a bill that will shape the future of our nation. Madam Speaker, ma'am, and let me start by the issue, the burning issue, the Gender Commission. Madam Speaker, ma'am, from my own analysis, from my own analysis,
May the honorable member be heard in silence, please.
From my own analysis, the bill had no intention to abolish the commission. The idea, from my own perspective, was to house very important commissions under one roof. And the idea, from my own thinking, was the best ever.
is to fund these commissions. But, Madam Speaker, ma'am, I was privileged to be a member in a joint committee of this bill. And at one time, we had the privilege to analyze the clause by clause and have a comment of the committee. But when we read the clause of the gender, Mira mani, yara. When we arrived at the comment of the gender issue, there was a near fight in the House because it divides the committee into two parts. But may I kindly persuade the House to at least consider the proposal for a while. I think it is the best for the country to move forward. Madam Speaker, ma'am, clause 4, 9, and 10 of the bill aim to substitute the current 5-year cycle to a 7-year term. This proposal, again, is a brilliant piece of legislation, and I'm in full support of it. A 5-year election cycle is uneconomical. The more we rotate these elections in a shorter period, the more we consume our scarce resources, and again, it is time-consuming. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I'm more worried about investors, prospective investors. We have a tendency of waiting for an outcome of an election before they could invest. Hence, the more we rotate these elections, the more we deter them coming to invest. Zimbabwe is not in isolation from this idea. Several countries have similar long-term cycles.
Order, Honorable Mashavari, Honorable Chugumbu. Say murugudaira imini matiko akambodaro ndiani ndanga ndakakutarisai tichitsvaga kuti munhu ari kuita noise ndiani makazvipamhiza muri kuenda pansi.
Sorry, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Mashavari, enderai mberi.
Honorable Speaker. Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Point of order.
Mazvita Honorable Speaker. Tanga tichikumbira kuti vari kudiviro ngavatendere Honorable vapedze kudhibheta vakanyarara. Isusu tanga takanyarara kunoko, we enjoyed my long lecture angasina anything to do with the debate. Ngavanyarare Honorable vazvikwe avo.
Ichokwadi chamataura. Kana vanhu vari muimba ino vachinzima honorable members vanotarisirwa kuve neunhu hunoenderana nemataito iwawo, saka ndo zvatotarisira. Endererai mberi Honorable Mashavari. Several countries have similar long-term cycles. These include United Kingdom, Italy, Ireland, Cameroon, and many others. This bill was long overdue, and I fully support it. Madam Speaker, ma'am,
give me the opportunity to air my view on the traditional leaders. From my own analysis, the bill had no intention to force the traditional leaders to be in politics. The idea was to flexi a rule whereby if a traditional leader feels he wants to participate in politics, let it be and not be a crime. Madam Speaker, ma'am, let me talk about the amendment of 92. Amendment of Section 92 of the bill states that the president must be elected by members of parliament in a joint sitting with the senator and the National Assembly. Section 97 of the Zimbabwe Constitution mandated the members of parliament powers to impeach or to remove a president. And for that piece of legislation to be more effective, members of parliament should have the powers to appoint and to fairly to have the powers to remove him. Surely you cannot have the power to remove someone whom you didn't appoint. We elect councillors, and councillors elect mayors. We elect members of parliament, and members of parliament elect the Speaker of the House. United States of America conducts election to choose the electors by state. And these electors from the Electoral College officially elect the president. Other countries like Germany, India, the president is elected by the parliament. And closer to home, Madam Speaker, ma'am, South Africa uses what we call a hybrid system, whereby citizens vote for parliament, and the parliament will elect president from within. On the issue of voters' roll, Madam Speaker, ma'am, I fully support the idea of returning the voters' roll to the registrar for the same reason that the registrar is the custodian of all the documents from birth to death, which will include birth records, birth certificates, IDs, passports, marriage certificates, and a death certificate. Surely, a more updated voters' roll is guaranteed. Madam Speaker, ma'am, Zimbabwe is a sovereign state, and we are the champions of democracy and the masters of our destiny. We decide how we want to run our own country. I am in full support of the bill, so I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Mashawabe. Next to take the floor is Honorable Ara Makumire.
Ndoda kutenda mubato wechigaro nekunipa mukana wekuisa izwi rangu pa bhiri iri rachiriridza mukati menyika, ndichiritsoropodza, ndichirishora, ndichiriramba zvakaomarara. Noramba bhiri iri mubato wechigaro nokuti kwandinobva vanhu vechiredzi ndakavabvunza kuti munoti kudini pamusoro pebhiri iri.
Point of order. Regai timtaurire. Hey.
Honorable members, may we have order in the house? Enderera imbere.
Point of order. Point of order.
What is your point of order?
That's why honorable Ropa Makumire vachiti vanhu vechiredzi ngavanyatsotaura kuti chiredzi ipi yacho yakona chiredzi yose here nekuti tiripo amwe kuchiredzi isu hatina mbomutuma izvozvo.
Order. Order. May we have order in the house? Honorable Makumira, hanzi taurai chiredzi yenyu nokuti machiredzi aya akawanda.
Ndakavabvunza pamusoro pebhiri kuti munorida here
Honorable Makumire,
chiredzi central.
taurai chiredzi yenyu.
Ndiri MP wechiredzi central constituency. Ndakavabvunza kuti bhiri iri munorida here. Ndokubva vati honorable indai pachipatara chechiredzi general hospital. Ndona chimiro chiripo mouya totaura nyaya iyi. Ndakaenda pachipatara mubati wechigaro ndikandoongorora ndikaona varwere vachishayiwa mishonga pachipatara. Ndokubva ndataurira vabereki.
Point of order. Point of order.
What is your point of order?
Tanga ndichikumbira kuti honorable Makumire vataure zviri mubhiri kwete zvechipatara. Hapana patakambosangana nazvo.
Honorable Makumire, endererai mberi.
Ndokubva ndadzoka kwavari mubati wechigaro ndikavaonesa chimiro chiri muchipatara. Ndokubva vagari vemuchiredzi central vakati zvino kana chipatara chisina mushonga moda kuwedzera 2 years dzokuitei. Ndakabvunza madzimai ndikati madzimai munorida here bhiri iri? Ndokubva madzimai akati tiri kuzvarira pasi muchipatara. Hatigoni kuzvarira pasi muchipatara for the next 2 years uda kuwedzerwa nebhiri iri. Ndakaenda mukamba yemapurisa ndikabvunza mapurisa munorida here bhiri iri? Mapurisa akati mari atiri kuhora haikwani, tariremo neshangu dzedu zvadzakaita. Ndokubva ndatorwa ndikaratidzwa mahofisi mubati wechigaro.
On a point of order.
Mahofisi anga ari emapuranga.
On a point of order.
Order, Honorable Makumire.
Ndokubva vabvunza vakati.
On a point of order.
2 years ndedzei tichiendera mapuranga.
On a point of order.
What is your point of order?
Mubati wechigaro muno mudare tichitanga basa tinopiga miko yekutaura chokwadi kana tiri muno mudare. Tanga tichizokumbirawo kuti honorable Makumire vachiremekedza miko yavakapika vachitaurire mapurisa akavaudza kuti mari yavanotambira ishoma ndatenda.
Honorable Danzi, zvamataura ndazvinzwa. Asi regai ndikupindurei ndichiti zvambotaurwa muno muimba muno kuti vanhu vakanyorera vachisapota kuti vanoda bill vanosvika 537,102. Vanhu vakanyorera vachiti havasi kusapota i2,935. Saka Honorable Makumire nevamwe vavo vashoma ndo vari pa 2,000 ipapo.
Point of order.
Endererai mberi Honorable Makumire.
Mubati wechigaro ndakatenda vanhu vari kucharika masuweji mukati menzvimbo vakati 2 years mozida dzei tichigara muchina sezvizvi. Ndakabvunzwa nemauto akati 2 years mozida dzei tichikanga waya sezvizvi. Ndakavabvunza toenderera mberi here kwavamwe makore 2, vakati kuenderera kwenyu makore 2 kuenderera mberi kwenhamo yatiri kusangana nayo. Ruzhinji rweZimbabwe mubati wechigaro ruri kupikisana nebhiri iri nekuda kwekuti harisi bhiri riri kubva kuvanhu. Mubati wechigaro ndoda kuti ndikuonesei kuti bato riri kutonga izvezvi mukati mehurumende yeZimbabwe rakatanga mugore ra1980.
Honorable Makumire, taurai nezvebhiri, hatisi kutaura nezvemapato. Musarasika, makarasika ndokugarisai pasi.
Madam Speaker, ndandichikumbirawo your indulgence kuti nditaurewo point of order. Madam Speaker, we have statistics that we have already mentioned in this House that the majority, 500,000 plus submissions, supported this bill in 2000. So the honorable member cannot continue to say the majority, because the majority evidence, we have it in this House. Unless he had his own consultations that we were not part of.
Ndizvozvo zvamataura honorable government chief whip, kutaura vanhu vanosiyana kamashoko, vamwe vanogona kuti majority asingazoti zviri kunyatsorevei kuti majority zvacho. Mashoko anenge achikotaurika yeye. Endererai mberi honorable Makuira.
Mubati wechigaro, bhiri iri riri kutsvaga kuwedzera makore 2, asi tikatarisa hurumende iripo iko zvino yakanga iripo kubva gore ra1980 sandaberekwa. Vanhu vari kubvunza kuti mabasa ari kupi. Vechidiki vari kurutairira mumastreets, vari kutaradza nemutorero nokushayiwa mabasa. Vari kubvunza kuti kubva 1980 maiteiko muchikona kugadzira nyika. Zvomoda kuwedzerwa 2 years. Maiteiko kubva November 2017. Almost a decade mubati wechigaro. 2 years mozida dzeiko makatadza kugadzira nyika pa 10 years. Ndomubvunzo une vana veZimbabwe mubati wechigaro. Mubati wechigaro ndoda kuti ndibate nyaya yekuzviwedzera temu yedu isu vagere pachigaro. Ndoda kuti ndikuonese mubati wechigaro kuti ukama huripo pakati peunovhota.
Regai ndimbokubvunza iwo mubvunzo. Order.
You are there to moderate debate, Madam Speaker. Not to question me. Allow me to debate. You are not on the chair to question me. You are there to moderate debate. Yes. It's not within your place to interrogate me.
All right. Regai ndikubvunzei mubvunzo. Order. Muri kuzviwedzera here kati muri kuchinja election cycle? Muri kuzviwedzera here kati muri kuchinja election?
On a point of order, Madam Speaker. 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 Madam Speaker, when you are seated on that chair, you are chairing Parliament. It is not your prerogative to ask people questions.
Don't lecture the presiding officer.
You don't have. No, this is not a. This is his debate. You should allow him to debate.
Honorable Makumire, endererai mberi.
Bado chigaro ndiri kutini. On a point of order, madam. You cannot rise on a point of order, man. Ruling.
mberi.
Bato wechigaro ukama uripo pakati pevanovhota nevanovhoterwa ndokuti isu vanovhoterwa tiri varanda navashandi vevanhu. Zvino mushandi haagoni kuzviwedzera contract kana kuchinja contract pasina wirirano nauyo wakapinza munhu basa. Now panyaya yemubato wechigaro vanhu vakativhotera ndo vane decision. Vanhu vari muvhoters roll yenyika ndo vane decision. Saka nyaya iyi manje inoda kuti iende kureferendum. Haigoni kupedzwa vanhu vasina kuenda kureferendum. Ndoda kutaurira kudai mubato wechigaro kana bhiri yakasapotiwa ne99% yevanhu tiri kutyei kuenda kureferendum. Tiri kutyei kudzokera kuvanhu. Tiri kutyei kuenda kune vanhu vakavhota. I know there are some very unpopular members in this house. Vasingadiwi kwavanobva, vasingadiwi kumaprovinsi avanobva, vari kutya kudzokera kuvanhu. Saka tiri kuti isusu bhiri harigoni kuenda mberi risina kuenda kureferendum. Mubato wechigaro ndoda kubata nyaya yekuti
point of order.
Zai.
Point of order.
Is a point of order.
Maita basa mubato wechigaro. Ndofunga honorable member vambokumbirwa kutaura kuti vanobva constituency ipa havana kutaura. Iko zvino vakuti vanhu mahonorable member anotya kudzokera kumaconstituency. Isu takamiririra vanhu. Totya kudzokera vanhu vatakamirira. Ngavasanyebera mahonorable member.
Honorable Makumire ndambokutaurira kuti taurai zviri mubhill zvamava kutaura honai vanhu vati tine ukama hwakanaka nevanhu vatinomiririra.
Mubato wechigaro vanhu vava vachirumbidza mabasa
masarirwa namaminitsi mana.
ndatanga debate na 11 minutes to ndandakaibata 11 minutes to ndandaka debate. And I think the parliament live stream inoratidza maminitsi andadebata. Mubato wechigaro ndanzwa vamwe vachiti dai tawedzera shumba murambwe mamwe makore maviri vari muhofisi vasvike mugore ra2030. Ndoda kuti ndijekese mubato wechigaro kuti shumba iko zvino vane makore.
Honorable Makumire.
Point of order.
What is the point of order?
Mazvita mubato wechigaro. Nyaya dzatiri kutaura inyaya dzakakosha, honorable speaker. Hatingakanganisi mukana wakadai nevanhu vari kucreata content muno. Kubva tichitanga debate ranhasi, honorable speaker, hapana taura zvokuti shumba murambwi. Honorable Makumire vari kuzwana kuti
Honorable Makumire, mabvunzwa anzi ataura kuti shumba murambwi muno ndiani? Pindura. Endererai mberi, masarwana maminitsi maviri.
Mubato wechigaro mukazvitarisa muchaona kuti nyaya yekuti president avhoterwe muno muparliament inyaya yandisingatsigiri mukati mebhiri iri, nokuti ndinonzwisisa mubato wechigaro kuti kuna vanhu vazhinji vakatsakatika muhondo vachifira kodzero kuti vanhu vagose kuvhota. Ndinopikisa this clause mubato wechigaro nokuti kuna vanhu vatinoshayiwa kuti nanhasi tikavabvunza kuti nhai macomrades makafirei, makafira mabhasikoro here. Tinobvunza kuti nhai macomrades zvamairwira muhondo magains aya aenda. Ndobvunza dai ndaikwanisa kuvaona ndaibvunza comrade Chitepo.
Point of order.
Ndaibvunza Jackson Mziyapapa moyo
Point of
makafireko naye macomrades
Order, Honorable Makumire. What is
Afireko
your point of
nenzara,
order,
macomrades
Honorable Matangiri?
maigareko masango
Order,
macomrades
Honorable Makumire.
Point of order.
Point of order. What is your point of order, Honorable Matangiri?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Tikada kucheuka kumashure sezviri kutaurwa nahonorable Makumire, vatengesi ndo vanga vasingadi kuti nyika iuye kuvatema vawana mukana nhasi kuva MP vakutanga kutaura kuti vakasunungura nyika ndo vakaramba kuti vatema vatore ivhu ava vatengesi ava vana honorable Makumire ava vanotengesa.
On a point of order.
Order, Honorable members. Regai vachipedzesa vasarwa neminiti rimwe.
Mubato wechigaro pane nyaya iri kuunza tokusisiti especially dzakanangana nekusarudza mutungamiriri wenyika. Ndoda kubvunza mubato wechigaro kuti pakaurayiwa Bishop Tafumanei Masai ndipresident upi wataivhotera? Pakaurayiwa Ndira ndiani wataivhotera? Ndiani akauraya Chiminya? Ndiani akauraya Cheninyepo?
Time dzenyu dzakwana, Honorable Makumire.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Matanga na 1645 kutaura. Ndikurekoda. Chiga
stream.
Aiwa, matanga na 1645.
Madam Chair,
ndikurekoda
we have our stopwatch here.
Chitorai chigaro chenyu.
Point of Chair, Madam Chair.
Honorable tafana nazvo.
Point of order.
Point of privilege, Madam Chair.
Point of order.
No, there's a point of privilege here.
Point of order.
I move for the extension of time for Honorable Makumire.
I second. We second.
Second. Object.
We second.
I second.
Is there an objection?
No objection.
Zero.
No reason to.
Honorable tafana nazvo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Madam Speaker, ma'am, let me start by quoting Edmund Bagi from
Point of order, Madam Speaker. Point of order, Madam Speaker. Point of order.
Matama Njimbo. What is your point of order? Order, Honorable Joe.
Ndida kutenda, Madam Speaker. Nemkaona mandipa kuti ndite point of order. Point of order yangu, Madam Speaker, iri maringe nemafambisirwo ebasa mukati memba ino. Pasimuka Honorable Chikombo vachitiwo tikumbire kuti vamakumire vawedzerwe nguva.
Zvarambwa nevamwe ndo zviri pamutemo kuti tinobvunza kuti vano vanopokana here.
Andisati ndapedza mubato wechigaro. Asati ndapedza mubato wechigaro.
Makupedza nguva yaHonorable.
Aiwa, handisi kuipedza mubato wechigaro, nguva ndeyedu. Ndoda kuti ine mubato wechigaro. Pasimuka pachikumbirwa kuti tiwedzere nguva dzaHonorable Makumire. Vamakumire vanga kutaura pfungwa yakakosha kuti vanga vakabatawo time yavo. Last time takanzi isusu nguva dzinobatwa nemaclerks. Saka imimi manga muchibata nguva sani, hatichanzwisisa isusu.
Nguva dzinobatwa neni panapa ndinobata nguva. Ava varipo bedzi pakuzondiyeuchidza kana ndapoira. Ndinobata nguva panapa mubva mazviziva kubva nhasi.
Point of privilege, Madam Speaker. Point of privilege.
Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Point of privilege, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Honorable members, ngatiite zvinoita kuti basa riende mberi.
Yes, point of privilege, Madam Speaker. It's a point of privilege. It
Order,
interrupts
Honorable
process.
Point of privilege, Honorable Gumbu.
Madam Speaker, muri kukanganisa mafambisirwo ebasa reparliament. Imisa sachigaro wenhaurirano huru iri kuitika muno. Munosungirwa kuchengetedza vatauri, kumbunyikidza vatauri. Chirungu areka you allow get the bill. Then I vibe for
Ndo mafungiro enyu, ndo maonero enyu, asi ini ndiri kuziva kuti zvandiri kuita ndo zvipamutemo. Ini ndiri kuziva kuti zvandiri kuita ndo zvipamutemo, ndo maonero enyu. Honorable Zhou.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Let me start by quoting Edmund Baggy. Madam Speaker, ma'am, he said, Parliament is not a congress of ambassadors from different and hostile interests, but is a deliberate assembly of one nation with one interest, part of the whole, where not a local purpose, not local prejudice, or to guide by the general good. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I want to congratulate you and Parliament staff the way you conducted Cape 3 consultations. I'm an MP since 2013, Madam Speaker, ma'am, and I participated in most of the public hearings for bills in Cape 1 and Cape 2. Most of these consultations, Madam Speaker, ma'am, were conducted only covering 5 provinces at most, and on Cape 3 you made sure that we visit every district in our beautiful country, Zimbabwe, which is unusual, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I want to associate myself with the report which was presented by the Chairman for Justice Committee, Honorable Zogo. I was in Manicaland, covering Manicaland on the Cape 3 consultations. People supported the bill so well and the attendance was so good. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I'm in full support of the bill, and as a representative of Berengwa West constituents, and I'm representing the will of the people in my constituents. Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Order, Honorable Zhou.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The honourable member quoted the Manicaland consultations. In my constituency, they were anything but fair. In fact, we have a video stake of one lady speaking, and the microphone was taken away from her. It was rigged. It's not a true reflection in the Sukuba Bite Hall. Thank you.
Honorable Zhou, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Madam Speaker, ma'am, constitutional amendments reflect a society's capacity to grow. They are powerful tools that allow the law to adapt to the evolving needs and moral standards of the people, proving that a governing document is a living framework rather than a rigid relic. Madam Speaker, ma'am, a constitution is not a document in black and white. It is a living document that evolves with the nation. Let me take you back to the Lancaster Constitution that gave birth to our motherland, Zimbabwe. The Constitution was amended 19 times, Madam Speaker, ma'am. from 1980 to 2013, which is 32 years. If you do mathematics, Madam Speaker, ma'am, the Constitution was amended after every 2 years or less. Madam Speaker, ma'am, let me pick some few clauses that I thought I should add my voice. The term extension is not targeting our president, President Mnangagwa, or us as members of parliament, no. The biggest beneficiaries for the Cape 3 are the people who are going to win the elections after 2030. The Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 18 Act, which allowed parliamentary and presidential elections to be held concurrently on 29 March 2008, shortened the parliamentary and presidential elections to be held concurrently on 2008, shortened the parliament term. So we're just going to recover the 2 years which were shortchanged when the term was cut by 2 years. The term for members of parliament was supposed to run from 2005 to 2010. The Act also revised the concurrent presidential term from 6 years to 5 years. Let me also touch the clause for the introduction of the Limitation Commission, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I fully support the clause, Madam Speaker, ma'am. We have got a lot of legacy issues from our land reform exercise where the farm boundaries are not known, the chiefs who are like governing their jurisdictions. This creates conflicts between the chiefs in our constituencies. The other challenge that needs to be rectified, we've got chiefs servicing 2 or more constituencies because of the delimitation which was fast-tracked by ZEC. Madam Speaker, ma'am, on Gender Commission, I humbly request the Minister to leave it as it was. We had made some strides in the international community where Zimbabwe was considered as one country already achieved the goals for gender issues. From my own view, we are now retrogressive, Madam Speaker, ma'am, if we disband Gender Commission and we will overburden the Human Rights Commission, which is now dealing with the issues of national peace and reconciliation since from 2023 upon the expiry of the NPRC Act. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I humbly ask our Minister of Justice maybe to just pay the Gender Commission so that we progress in the international community. So I submit, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Joe. Honorable Nyabani.
Maita basa, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Ndafara nemukana wamandipa kuti ndigotaura kune vanhu vokurushinga vakandipa matemu mawiri yokuti ndinge ndiri muno ndichiwamiririra. Vanhu vakauya kurushinga, ndanga ndiri kurushinga, vachibvunza kuti toita sei nebhiri iri nyowanyika ratiri kuda kuuya riite mutemei. Vanhu vakati vanoda bhiri, wese vakamusumudza, aingosumudza ruoko ndoda bhiri, aisumudza ruoko. Handina kumboona akati handisuda bhiri. Kana aripo anondiudza kuti aiva kurushinga kwakabuda 0, vanhu vaisapota bhiri. So inini ndinongobva nezvandabva nazvo kurushinga ndoyandotura muno kuti aiva kurushinga kwandinobva uko vanhu vakusapota bhiri.
Honorable Nyabani, ndinoti mudzokorore pamatauro.
Ndatinosapota bhiri pazvese, tichita Zimbabwe yese vanhu kurushinga tiri kusapota bhiri, nokuti pawakauya kurushinga wachitsvaga kuti vanhu vari kufungei nezvebhiri, waiti tikuda bhiri wakanga wakawanda kuma 70, waiti hatisi kuda bhiri paka pane 0 kushinga. Ndisingatauro kuno kwandisina kuenda.
Point of order.
Order,
Madam
Honorable Nyabani. What is the point of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, ma'am. I think there's a great misconception in terms of the understanding of what a public consultation is supposed to do and what an election is. For the simple basis that there might be a limited number of people who are supporting or not supporting the bill, it is not something that is binding in accordance to our Constitution of Zimbabwe. The election is a determining factor, and that is why some other members of parliament are yearning for a referendum, because it is actual and it reflects quantitatively the number of those who are in support of the bill. You cannot stand up here and say that due to a public consultation you have ruled.
I hear you, Honorable Member.
That is a fact,
But you
Madam Speaker,
have your time to debate. You
I'm
have your time to
I'm
debate.
correcting the perception that is there.
No, I said
There's a difference between a consultation and an election. So you
Honorable
cannot
Member,
rule out to say that.
wait for your time. You will have
This
your
is not
time
a debate. I need to correct
And you
fact.
will say whatever you want to say. Please, may you take your seat.
It's a fact, Honorable.
Honorable Nyabani, please may you proceed.
aita basa Madam Speaker nekundidziyirira kuti ndirege kurohwa nezvibhagera neumwe wangu, asi ndoda kuti avhure kuna Mark 2 verse 27. Mark 2 verse 27
On a point of order.
munhu
Point of order, Madam Speaker. Point of order, Madam Speaker.
I have
Madam
another
Speaker,
point of order.
If you recognize me.
Ingewani takabvumirana kuti mumwe nemumwe anotaura zvaanofunga kutaura. Anenge aine pfungwa dzakasiyana nezvataurwa nemumwe ozowanawo mukana wake wokutaura zvake. Tadii taenderera mberi.
I think the message was directed to me, Honorable Speaker, ma'am. He says, I think I should open the Bible to some verses. So that's why I'm also here as a...
You are not supposed to answer him when he is debating.
That's why I raised a point of order, which is allowed by the standing rules and orders of this House.
Speaker, point of order.
Please, may you take your seat. Honorable,
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
what is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, in our standing rules and orders, it is clearly stated that when a member rises on a point of order, they must specifically cite the order that they are referring to. For a constitutional rule that is being breached, for any provision. Now, what we are seeing, Honorable Speaker, is that honorable members are just standing up to disrupt someone who is giving their submission. May this be stopped, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Your point of order has been noted, Honorable Mutodi. Honorable Nyabani, please may you proceed.
Madam Speaker, ndaida kuti ndisati ndaenderera mberi, ndaida kuzwa kuti the honorable member here because ndasana kuona mupala.
Honorable Nyabani, debate bill tiende mberi. Debate bill tiende mberi, Honorable Nyabani. Debate bill tiende mberi. Debate bill tiende mberi.
Ndoda kutenda Madam Speaker mem. Mark 2 verse 25 Madam Speaker mem. Kune vanhu vasingaende kuchechi asana kunoende kucheseni kuti 27 inotaura kuti mutemo wakagadzirirwa munhu asi munhu haana kugadzirirwa mutemo. Zvoreva kuti mutemo unogona kuchinjwa at any time nemunhu asi mutemo haugoni kugadzira munhu. Madam Speaker mem, regai ndiende, ini ndoda kutaura, handina kungotaura ndichitaura zvongotaura zvomhepo. Ndoda kutaura ndichikota macross ndichienda ndichiuta kuti senyika yeZimbabwe hatisi kugara pachitsuwa kana kuti kugara pedu tega. Tinoita yatinoti pachirungu benchmarking. zvatinoita tinenge tichikopera kudzimwe nyika. Hatingoite zvokungotifunga kuti tangoti nhasi toda kuita zvatoda kutongoita. Ndoda kutaura Madam Speaker mem tichitaura pa clause 8 inotaura kuti president wachange vachipamhidzira ma 10 senators. Toda kuona kuti zviri kubva papi Madam Speaker mem. Madam Speaker mem kupamhidzwa kuma senators kuchange kuchiitwa pa clause zvinhu zvinotobva zvikutowanikwa kudzimwe nyika dziri kuita saizvozvo. Toona pa clause 15 appointment of judges. Tine nyika dzakafanana North America, nyika dzakafanana nana Latin America, ana France. President vanonominata majudges vachibatsiridzwa ne High Council of the High Court Council of the Judiciary. Madam Speaker mem.
Madam Chair, please protect
Madam Speaker
us.
mem.
We are under siege.
Madam Speaker mem. Dai vanhu kana vasingaziwe ngavateerere. Vasingaziwe ngavateerere.
Point of order.
Point of order. Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Munotawirirana kuti kana munhu akusunga chipoint of order anobva ataura nenhamba yacho yemustanding rules and orders kuti according to nhamba yakati.
All right.
Rule 65 pamastanding orders. Muno mumba inoi Madam Speaker takuvara nemashoko asiri echokwadi muchidimbu kunyeperwa. Hakuna nyika inonzi North America maita basa.
Ari kutaura handisi kumuona ndiani ari kutaura?
Kwanzi nyika dzeNorth America nenyika dzeLatin America.
Madam Speaker mem, tikaenda panhau yatiri kutaura panapa yema-traditional leaders, clause 21. Tinenge chitaurisa tikataurisa na Eswatini kune making. Tikada kutaura ngatitaurei kuti 1884 kwanga kusina mapresidents vachitonga vachirwiswa kuno vanga vari madzishe madzimambo. 1884. 1884.
Honorable Nyabani, Honorable Nyabani, dibetai musingadaire kutaurwa nevanhu.
Vakauya varungu vachiuya muno vakaona madzishe ndo vairwisana nawo. Madzishe ndo vaitonga pasi. So nhasi tozotaura kuti madzishe havafaniri kunge vachiita zvematongerwo enyika sei kana iwo madzishe ndo yaitonga panguva iyoyo. So isu tiri kutaura kuti madzishe ndo vagara vari varidzi wenyika. Saka madzishe vanofanira kupinda muzvematongerwo enyika nokuti vakatorwisana nevarungu vachida kuedza kuvharidza kuti vapambe pfungwa varege kupamba nyika ino. So ini ndinoti madzishe vanofanira kunge vachipinda zvomatongerwo enyika. Tichiona kunana Eswatini kunana King Mswati vari kutonga ikoko. Madam Speaker mem, tine nyaya yemakore 7 yokuwandudzwa kwemakore kuti asvike pa7 kubva pa5. Haizi Zimbabwe chete, tine nyika dzakafanana dzemuAfrica dzakafanana ana Burundi wane 7 term, tine nyika ana Cameroon wane 7 term, ana Equatorial Guinea wane 7 term. Asi zvokuboni zvangonyuka kunge howa muZimbabwe ndokuti aiwa zvinhu zvikutoitwawo nedzimwe nyika. So isusu tinenge tichiona kuti zvakanakira chii, tinokoperawo senyika seZimbabwe zvakanakira kuti ikwanise kufambawo nemupamwe chete. Madam Speaker mem, tozoona panhau yekuti president anenge achizosarudzwa neparliament. Hazvisi zvokuti zvinhu zvekuti zvikungonyuka muZimbabwe. Madam Speaker mem, tine nyika dzakafanana naBotswana nana South Africa, ana Italy, ana Germany, ana Greece. Hakuvhotiwa inonzi direct, kuno ma-indirect inonzi indirect vote. So inini kana musingazivi zvikunana Greece, musingazivi zvikunana Italy, zvinokuitirai zvinyowani kuvhunduka. Munovhunduka, musavhunduke.
nokuti hazvisi zimbabwe chete. Werengai muone kuti zviri kuitwa kunyika dzipi. Motora useza kuti muzive kuti aiwa haisi nyika Zimbabwe. Moona kuti kwazviri kuitwa kuAmerica, kuGreece ikoko zviri kuitwa sei. Ndozvamufanira kukopera izvozvo. Pazviri kuitwa kuItaly ikoko zviri kuitwa sei. Mukopera izvozvo. Kwete kungoshora shora musati maita. Musamedze musati matsenga. Madam Speaker memo, ndoda kutaura kuti bhiru iri kana kuti mutemo uyu hauzi kugadzirirwa ZANU-PF, ukugadzirirwa mutemo wehurumende. Nokuti mutemo wamukutaura wa 2013 wacho vakatopaswa nakuma MP vakaenda. Imwe mutemo yakaishandisa before 2013 yakatiitwa nakuma MP akaenda. So isusu sekuma MPs tiripo muno kupinda muno tichipenengura tichiwerengawo nemabhiri kuti ndedzipi dzimwe nyika dziri kuenderana nezvatiri kutaura kuti tienderane zvino zvino. Tichifamba toona kuti 5 years dzakatinakira chii, 7 years dzakatinakira chii. Kwete kungoti wopinda muno uchingaita noise uchiita noise.
Order honorable Nyabani. Engineer atitarisire munhu akadzidza zvokuita engineer kungodaira kana ari muparliament.
Ndine urombo Madam Speaker memo.
Endererai mberi honorable Nyabani.
Pane zvinhu zvakawanda Madam Speaker memo. Zvakanzi izvo fupa rakaenda naJesu ranga risingaoni. Rakasvinudzwa naJesu rakanzi uri kuona chii. Zvikanzi ndiri kuona kuti kutenderera. Akabva azobatwa futi akabva. Pane vamwe vanhu vane maziso asi havazi kuona. Havazi kuudzwa kana kuwerenga kuti kwatova nemacancer screening machine akauya nerimwe zuva takazviverenga zviriko. Havazi kuona kuti kune zvipatara zviri kuwandudzwa. Havazi kuona kuti kune marodzi ari kugadzirwa. Havazi kuona kuti izvi zvakawanda zviri kuitika asi vane maziso asi havaoni. Madam Speaker memo, ndoda kupedzisa nevhesi riri mubhaibheri shoko raMwari.
Hallelujah.
Kuna Mark 16 verse 19. Kwanzi chasungwa pasi kana kudenga chasungwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Nyabani, Honorable James, please may you
Thank you,
allow
Madam
him
Speaker.
to
All I want to
finish.
say is
He's
apparently God is in it again.
Honorable James, I'm talking to you. I'm saying he's about to finish. Please may you allow him to finish. Honorable Nyabani, please may you proceed.
Anonzwa shona here nganyara ro. Unonzwa shona here.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. On a 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 point of order, Madam Speaker.
Mark 16 verse 19.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker.
Mark 16 verse 19.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker.
Mutemo yabvumiwa kushinga nepasi rese.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker. On a point of order, Madam Speaker.
What is your point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are setting a very wrong precedent in this parliament. Other members of parliament are debating and insulting people. Honorable Nyabani has just insulted Honorable James, and we cannot allow that to pass. Parliament is a civil institution. We cannot have people throwing insults on other members of parliament. That cannot be allowed, Madam Speaker. You have to rule on that one.
I hear you, Honorable. Honorable Nyabani just said he doesn't understand Shona, so why is he raising a point of order?
Yenu Nyabani yeziskiwa ini.
Is that insulting? So,
Madam Speaker, it's an insult. We have Madam Speaker, if it was coming from Honorable Jens, it was going to be an insult and racist. And Honorable Nyabani,
I hear you, Honorable.
and you have to rule on that, Madam Speaker. He has to withdraw.
I hear you, take a seat. Honorable Nyabani.
Madam Speaker, a simple apology would suffice.
Order, honorable members. All right, toba mirira vadzoke. Honorable P. Chitimbe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, ma'am. I rise to contribute on the debate on the CAP 3. Honorable Speaker, I support the proposed extension of term of the office of President, members of Parliament and councillors by 2 years. However, my support is based on the expectation that additional period will be used to strengthen democratic governance, improve service delivery, and address the concerns of people of Zimbabwe. The additional 2 years will also provide continuity in the implementation of national development programs and allow ongoing projects to be completed without disruption. The people of Zimbabwe must see tangible benefits from any extension of terms like the presidential ball scheme which we witnessed in Budiro North, Marondera, and recently in Blawayo, spearheaded by the presidential advisor. The proposed extension must also be used to promote equal opportunities for women, youth, persons with disabilities, so that no one is left behind in the development of our nation. Honorable Speaker, I also support the transfer of voter registration and maintenance of the voters' roll to the Registrar General. The Registrar General already manages birth certificates, death certificates, and national identity records, making the office well placed to maintain an accurate, updated voters' roll. However, before this transfer is fully implemented, the Registrar General must address the challenges many citizens face in obtaining birth certificates and national identity documents. Without these documents, the citizens cannot register to vote or fully participate in national affairs. Government services must be decentralized and brought closer to the people so that every citizen can easily access the documents they require. No citizen of Zimbabwe should be required to travel unreasonable distances to obtain identification documents. Honorable Speaker, I oppose the proposal to allow traditional leaders to participate in partisan politics. Traditional leaders play an important role in ensuring that government assistance reaches communities, resolving disputes, administering justice, and maintaining peace within the society. To perform these duties effectively, they must remain impartial and serve all citizens equally. If traditional leaders become involved in partisan politics, people may begin to view them as favoring one political party over other. Furthermore, a person who contests an election against a traditional leader may find it difficult to continue recognizing that leader's authority after a political contest. This may create divisions within communities and undermine the dignity, respect, and neutrality traditionally associated with traditional leadership. Traditional leaders are custodians of our culture, customs, and traditions, and their authority is best protected when they remain non-partisan. Honorable Speaker, I also oppose the abolition of Zimbabwe Gender Commission. Zimbabwe is one of the countries recognized internationally for promoting and protecting the rights of women and girls. Gender equality remains a specialized issue that requires a dedicated institution with a clear mandate. The Zimbabwe Gender Commission plays an important role in promoting equality, investigating gender-related complaints, combating discrimination, and protecting vulnerable groups. It also helps Zimbabwe to fulfill its international obligations under Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. The Commission has handled numerous complaints, conducted important investigations, and contributed to policies that protect women, girls, men, and boys. For these reasons, I believe the Zimbabwe Gender Commission should remain an independent constitutional body. Honorable Speaker, while I support the extension of terms of office and transfer of voters registering to the Register General, I remain opposed to the abolition of Zimbabwe Gender Commission. I therefore urge this House to adopt reforms that strengthen democracy, protect our institutions, and improve the lives of the people of Zimbabwe. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Chitimbe. Honorable Omrambiwa.
Maita basa mubati wechigaro. Mubati wechigaro regai ndikuswedzei maswera sei. Mubati wechigaro regai ndikutendei nenguva yamandipa kuti nditaure mashoko angu mashomanene pamusoro peCAP 3 iri mudariro muimba ino. Madam Speaker, ine ndichitaura kudai ndiri kutaura ndakamiririra vanhu vakandituma kuno, vanhu veZaka North constituency. Madam Speaker, pakaitwa public hearing kuZaka ndaivapo payakaitwa kwaRudhanda. Paiva nevanhu vanodarika 2000. Asi pavanhu vose vakataura, Madam Speaker, vanhu vazhinji vaivapo vakataura vachitsigira bhiri ratiinaro nhasi. Saka ndokubva vati aiwa honorable, zvatanga tichitaura papublic hearing apa mazvinzwa. Kana makuenda kuparliament chiregai kundotirasisa ikoko. Saka ini ndichiuya munomu ndauya kuti ndizonyatsa kutura mashoko evanhu vandinomiririra vokuZaka North constituency. Madam Speaker, chinangwa chebhiri redu iri kana takazvitarisa ndechebudiriro yenyika yeZimbabwe. Chinangwa chebhiri iri hachipo pakuputsa development iri kuitika muno munyika yeZimbabwe. Saka taona kuti mafambiro ari kuita development ndo aita kuti vanhu vari kuZaka North vandomiririra vanditume kuno kuti ndiuye ndizotsigira bhiri iri. Mukaona munhu anenge achivenga bhiri iri munhu asingadi development. Madam Speaker, regai ndipe mufananidzo wokuti, Madam Speaker, kana ukaona waramba mukadzi, hakuna murume anofarira kuona mukadzi waaramba achibudirira. Saka nokuda kwai Saka Madam Speaker, vanhu vakakonzeresa kuti nyika ino irohwe namasanctions havangafari kuona nyika ino yeZimbabwe ichibudirira. Vanoti ade yaramba iri pasi. Madam Speaker, regai ndinde kusarudzo yomutungamiri wenyika iri kutaurwa mubhiri muno kuti aiwa inofanira kuitwa.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Members of Parliament.
Order, Honorable. What's your point of order, Honorable?
Okay, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member must clearly define to us, because there are so many people who brought their submissions against this bill, including the war veterans. Is he saying the war veterans brought sanctions? What is he trying to say? He has to clarify on that point.
You are out of order, Honorable. May you allow Honorable Member to debate freely.
Maita basa, Madam Speaker. Ndangandapa nyaya yokusarudzwa kwomutungamiri wenyika iri kutaurwa mubhiri ratinaro nhasi uno. Isisu takasarudziwa kumirira vanhu. Saka vanhu vatiri kumirira kumusha ndo vakaita kuti tiuye kuno kuparliament. Saka vanhu vari kumusha pane zvinhu zvavakaona zvavanotituma tichiuya nazvo tichitaura kuno. Saka vanhu vari kumusha vakati honorable takakutumai kuti indai mundotaura kuti hakuna network kuno. Tikaona mabase stations achisiwa, rimwe rakaiswa pajijidza muward 12, rimwe rikaiswa pandanga muward 3, rimwe rikaiswa riri kutoiswa kwagumbo izvezvi kuward 4. Saka ndiri kuzaka north vanhu voti tikakutuma imi MP muri kunotaura kuparliament. Vakandituma zvakare ndikauya ndikataura kuti bridge rakainda kuward 1 izvezvi riri kugadzirwa raakutopera. Vakandituma vakati muzaka north zvikoro zvishoma ikeno kuri kuvakwa Gosha primary school kuward 12, kuri kuvakwa Chigwagwa school kuward 4, kuri kuvakwa Mukwirimba secondary kuward 5, kuri kuvakwa Chiteva primary kuward 6. Vakati kana MP tichikutumai muchikwanisa kundotaura zvinhu izvi kuparliament kuti mirira zvizere naizvezvo chitimirirai pakusarudza president wenyika ino nokuti munotimirira zvizere.
What's your point of order, Honorable Makumere? Honorable Makumere, itai order. Madibeta, imi mavunzwa nani kuti mukutaura zviri paclosani. Allow Honorable Member to be heard. Order, Honorable Makumere. Honorable Makumere.
Maita basa mubati wechigaro nokundi vikirira kuzvibhakira zvanga zouya kubva kuno umwe wangu. Regai nditaure Madam Speaker panyaya ye-election cycle kubva pa 5 years tichienda pa 7 years. Nyaya iripo Madam Speaker handi iri kuitirwa vanhu vari muno pedzi apa kana iri kuitirwa mutungamiri wenyika aripo izvozvo. Ndinoona vanhu vazhinji vakataura nezvazvo. Saka ini ndobva ndaona kuti izvi zvakambainakisa izvi. Vanhu vezaka vakaona kuti zvakanakisa izvi nokuti zvinopa mukana kune vaye vachada kuzopinda vachitodzidza izvi vanenge vachidzidza pane dzimwe 2 years kuti